All right, I am starting the recording, so you don't want to say anything bad about Juan Pablo right now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to get some little dimmer light when we get going, when we can find somebody outside. Just as a quick introduction, we have Jorge on the line. He's going to give us an introduction to NiFi. It's a newer technology. Terry, Jorge, Didier have been investigating. It's whether you call it a stopgap or another tool set that we can use. It's a great tool set to bring data into our system. We can format data. We can take stream-based, telemetry-based data, all of these different technologies that are arising. We see Yang, NetConf, all these things in the market. NiFi, under development by Apache and Hortonworks, they've taken over the project as well. This is potentially something we can get going today. What we obviously need to know is what it can do, what the limitations potentially are, but how we can scope this into new efforts. It's going to be more important for us to pick up, on the learning curve, so we can kind of independently take action on that as consultants, architects. Pre-sales, really needs to understand what we can do with it. So Jorge has agreed to give sort of a lengthy presentation on that for the next 3 hours. We will have a breakout in between though. After that, we're going to follow up with some Vista Portal, Vista 360 interaction and training. That's going to be largely around dynamic criteria passing. 6.0 has some really great features that we can use and leverage to integrate both of them and make it more seamless. We can pass instances. We've done some things with an Acedian POC, and it turned out very well. Juan Pablo is familiar with that. We put together some really substantial pieces of reporting, and I think it's going to boast well. So Jorge, I'm not going to delay much further. We have a pretty good room in here. If anybody's not familiar with Jorge, can you just give him a quick introduction? Aurelio, perhaps starting?
Yeah, hi Jorge, everyone. Aurelio Velasquez, working for Amish team for...
Hi Aurelio.
Yeah, for service assurance projects in AT&T Mexico and the charter.
Okay. So just to give a quick layout around the room, Jorge, we have Asen in the room with us, Brad and Ron. Well, so Brad Ralph, and then Ron Ralph from sales is attending as well. Obviously, he's selling these products, needs to have a general idea as well, so he was in town and wanted to join, and we appreciate it.
Great, thanks for joining.
And then we have Amit, as you know. In the room also we have part of the sales team who's attending, Anup. If you want to just give a quick intro to Jorge.
Sure. My name is Anup Aluwalia. I come from the STEM side of the business. And as of July, I've been tasked to develop some new business. So customers who we have not been talking, areas that we have not been represented. So I'll be kind of taking that responsibility and try to open as many doors and identify as many opportunities we can have as regards to the service assurance portfolio.
Excellent.
And then also kind of finishing up in the room, we have Juan Pablo, who's local here with us, as you know, Dennis Kelly as well, and Irene has joined us. So we have, we have quite a bit of familiar faces and voices here. I don't know if you've met face-to-face with Irene. Have you? Okay, great. So with that, I'm gonna just let you start. Quick question: when Anup was talking, was he coming through clearly?
A little low, but I could understand.
Okay, I would say if anybody has any specific pointed questions, just try to get up and talk closer to the microphone so Jorge can hear you and not struggling as much there. All right, Jorge, take it away.
Okay, thanks a lot. Really appreciate that you guys invite me here. I am very motivated to show you the new stuff about NiFi and also later on about Vista Portal and Vista 360. So the agenda, just for you to let you know a little bit, it's this first 45 minutes before we have the break. I'm going to be smoothly introducing NiFi and what it does, and why do we want to, are we pushing to adopt it, and also what is the current status, because some projects in EMEA and Asia are already starting with NiFi involvement. So NiFi, where is NiFi? What is NiFi? First of all, it's complex to describe. Just as Matt made a very good attempt, I don't think I can do much better, because in the end it's a combination of an ETL, because it can, receive data in a specific format and then pass it out. It can also be called, I don't know, like a tool, a management tool like Ansible or like Puppet or Chef. It's a combination of different things that we can use in our advantage to make our platforms more flexible, so they can be easily integrated into, for example, virtual environments or more dynamic networks, generally speaking. Also, another of our intentions is to use it to access some projects where our functionalities may not be clearly oriented in that way, so we can strengthen this interfacing or this requirement specific from the customer. Now, how does NiFi describe itself? So NiFi is a data flow management platform, according to them. NiFi was built to automate the flow of data between systems. And now what I like about the following is sort of a philosophical description, is that the goal of NiFi is to have the data at the right format, at the right place, and at the right time, and both on the input and the output. So you have data somewhere, you pick it up, you normalize it, and then you put it somewhere else. This is basically why NiFi was built. And what's the history behind it? So it was founded by the US, by the NSA. The original name of NiFi was Niagara Files. And the goal for the NSA was to address the issues of data flow in the context of security, interactivity, fault tolerance, scalability, routing, transformation, data transformation, etc., etc. You see, it's a lot of challenge just to move files around in a secure way. Then it was open sourced to SAF on 2014, and in parallel with OnIARA, they started up a company that was supporting NiFi itself, with the original developers from the NSA, by the way. And finally, what made the big push for NiFi to become so popular, to be adopted by Apache, etc., was that Hortonworks acquired OnIARA and built their NiFi-based platform. For those of you that are not familiar with Hortonworks is a specialist on Hadoop clusters. So think very huge platforms like, for example, Azure have Hortonworks behind. If you want to have a super Hadoop system, most likely you're going to be willing to have something like Hortonworks to deal with the complex stuff. That means administrating, scaling, and managing a Hadoop cluster. So basically, they are, doing all these complex operations that happen inside their Hadoop cluster, and they use NiFi for it. So NiFi is the official solution for Hortonworks. Now, what are the NiFi challenges for us, and for many other stuff? But what I like to see this slide from is, imagine that you have to do a customization. You're going to develop a script, let's say Python, Perl, whatever you like more. You have to deal with all this stuff. What happens if your script is communicating with other machine and the other machine fails? What happens if your script, if the machine where the script is hosted fails? Do you have some sort of high availability with your scripting? Then what happens with overloading? What happens when your script is handling more data than is capable of consuming? How can you buffer it? Can you create queues? Can you make sure that the queues are never completely filled, so you are never saturated? The next one. Boundary conditions are mere suggestions. Sometimes the requirements from the customer is so high level that we don't know what is the reality once we start the project. So can you, for example, create a generic script that is going to work on the customer before you even get on site? The next one is, what is systems? What happens when systems evolve at different rates? So are you going to have multiple scripts? How are you going to handle this versioning of your script so they can run on the with the right version of the other side of the interface, for instance? Compliance and security. Is your script completely secure? Does it have vulnerabilities? If you're using SSL or any encryption mechanism, are you sure you are addressing all the vulnerabilities? Do you verify all the input data so somebody cannot try to hack your script by embedding code in your code? Are you compliant with the customer security policies, for example? All of this. Continuous improvement occurs in production. We know that we see this with our customers a lot. Our best customers, and I like to call it best because they are the most challenging for us and the most exciting. They want new features, they want new stuff on their platforms every day in production. So what happens with your script? You have a development platform, and then you can you migrate your script? Is your script adopted for everyone? So even a person that is not familiar with your script can run it. And yeah, you wanted to say something? Oh,
I think
sorry. No, I'm
coming through the other callers.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Sorry, Jorge. I think there was just some feedback from the other callers on the line. You can keep moving.
Oh, okay. No, okay, thank you. Yeah. So, and the final one is continuous improvement occurs in production. Yes, I was saying, customers want to make changes in their production platform. So, is your script ready or your customization ready to be placed automatically deployed into production, having passed some sort of test, etc. So all these challenges, we have them today when we do customizations. And of course, I would also add what happens if the day after the professional service consultant that has created this script for whatever reason is not available, and then somebody needs to take over with that script. He needs to dig into his code that was written by other guy, maybe in a language that is not so familiar with. So I would also say normalization, refactoring, and reusability of the customizations. So all of these challenges is what is leading us to choose NiFi as a DevOps tool, because it's what in the end it is. Most of the time it will be used for operations only, but also our R&D team can be engaged, and I will show you why, because the code can be very easily be embedded into NiFi for our purposes. So these are the challenges. Now, what does NiFi look like? So a little bit of the architecture. NiFi, the main technology behind NiFi is Java 8, and when Java 9 will be out, probably they will migrate to Java 9. It runs over the Java virtual machine, of course, which itself is running on the host. There are a couple of tweaks on the operating system, on Linux systems, that we can do to improve its performance, and all of this is fully documented. Now, once we go above the Java virtual machine, what do we find? So first of all, we find a web server. This means that all the administration and management of NiFi is done through the web server. So it becomes automatically remotely manageable and automatically always compatible, because as long as you have a browser, you can manage NiFi. Then and then we go with the real stuff. Then we have the flow controller. A flow controller will have processors and extensions. So the idea is that each processor is connected to another processor with conditions. So a processor can be connected to only one processor or to multiple processors. And then the flow file will be following these connections and stop on every processor to be processed, to be parsed. And then all of these transactions that will occur in this workflow with processors connected to each other are going to be registered. So we will have a flow file repository, because each one of the transactions that is made, that starts in the beginning of the workflow and ends, is wrapped into a flow file. A flow file is nothing that the data that we are, let's say, bouncing around our NiFi workflow. So this data is wrapped into a flow file. The flow file will have attributes, and the content of the flow file will be the data itself that we are managing. So each flow file will be written into a database so we can track it afterwards, meaning that the flow file flow can also be tracked. We can see what was the status and the content of the flow file before entering a certain processor, after exiting this certain processor, if the content has changed or not, if the content has changed properly or not. Then we have a content repository. It means that all of the work that we do, we can store it indefinitely. So if we create a workflow, we can store it, and then we can share it, and we can version it, etc. And finally, the provenance repository. We can keep track of where the data came, why the data came in this format, if it has been modified, and what was the format of this data after it was processed. So we can check again at any point of the transaction, what is the content, how is it flowing, and if there are errors or not, we can track them down. And not only this, for a post-mortem analysis, we can also go back in time and see what was happening back then and check the flow file to see what was the content, what failed. So everything that has happened is registered and stored in a database. Then if we keep moving, we have if we want to talk about scaling. So of course, one of the problems that we had is what happens when the data is overflowing our customization. So with NiFi, you can cluster. It means that if your NiFi, or the host, better said, the host that is hosting NiFi doesn't have enough hardware or enough resources to handle the load, you can just scale out. Of course, you can scale up, but at some point you may have issues. So it's already microserviced. You can cluster your NiFis, and you can, of course, embed this into a virtualization environment. So it can automatically scale under some patterns. If you, for example, under some thresholds, your host or your cluster status is CPU consumption is over 50%, then you automatically, boom, create a new instance with NiFi inside and configure it to become part of the cluster. So it helps handling the load. Next one, NiFi concepts. So a little bit what we saw in the architecture in greater detail. So the flow file is the information packet. A flow file represents each object moving through the system, moving through the NiFi workflow. A flow file processor, or a black box, it has an input or several inputs and an output or several outputs. So flow file gets in, some operations are done inside, and the flow file gets out with the operations being done. It can be routing, transformation, mediation between systems, all of these processors, and we will get into detail, a lot of detail into what processors are already available by default and what processors can we create on our own. Connection or bounded buffer. A connection provides the actual linkage between processors. And I would like to highlight the alternative lane, bounded buffer. Every connection is not just a path for the flow file to follow between processors. Every connection is also a queue, and you can control the behavior of this queue, so it can be filled or not, or never be filled. You can decide if the queue needs to be handled in a FIFO mode, in a LIFO mode. You can also decide if you want to push back. So, for example, a certain queue remains always at 0, and when it needs to queue, it tells the connection before it to queue there. So it's pushing back the queue. So it's never saturated. Then the next concept is the flow controller or scheduler. The flow controller maintains the knowledge of how process and connect and manages the threads and allocations thereof, which all processes use. For example, if I am having an HTTP listener inside NiFi, which is a possibility, there's an HTTP listener processor out of the box. If I want to bring this guy up and I want the others to be able to read the data that is going through this HTTP web server, then I need to make this service available for all the processors. So the flow controller is giving this transversal access to all the processors to the services that are brought up. What kind of services can be brought up in NiFi? So an HTTP listener, of course, but also we can load a script in memory. So the script is dynamically, it's already compiled in NiFi with the workflow, or we can be loading, for example, schemas. If we want to do data transformation and we don't want to go through the pain of parsing the data and then transform it, we can just describe schemas. And then we load those schemas, and they are available for all the processors to be used. I will talk a lot about those schemas because I believe that they are crucial for us. And finally, the process group or subnet. You know, NiFi is like an infinite field where you can place your processors and connect them and connect each processor with connectors. Now, this can become very, very messy and very, very cluttered because you can have multiple workflows. For example, you can have a workflow to retrieve some data for a certain EMS. Then you can have another workflow that is talking with an RESTful API to retrieve data as well. And at the same time, there's a third workflow that is streaming data from Vistamar out to a database like Kafka. So all these three processors, all these three workflows, sorry, could be running perfectly in the same NiFi, no issue. The problem is that when you try to look at them, it is very messy because you see a lot of boxes. You don't know where is the end of one of the workflows and the beginning of the other. So it is more of if you think like a directory or a Windows folder. So process groups are these folders. They allow us to group the processors and say, okay, all of this I'm going to put it here in a folder, so I only see one box instead of tens of boxes and tens of connectors. So it's just a way to make it clean. All the other guys before are very crucial for a NiFi working procedure, but the last one is just for human friendliness. Next, guys, of course, please don't hesitate. I know it's very early in the morning for you, so maybe you don't feel like challenging me a lot, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to step in and interrupt me at any point. So what are the key features of NiFi? Flow management, warranty delivery. As I said, no transaction is lost. We can, even if our workflow is failing, we can always stop the flow and say, start accumulating here in this queue, and then we fix the workflow, and once it's fixed, we let the packets that were accumulating, we let them free again and pass through. So imagine that, let's say we have a system failure and Vistamart is no longer available. So NiFi will be queuing all the flow files and all the queries from other systems until Vistamart is ready again. So warranty delivery. Data buffering with back pressure and pressure release. This is what I was meaning with pushing back on the queuing. So if we want to buffer in a specific connector, we can. But if we believe that this connector shouldn't be queuing because it is related to real time or it is related to other stuff that we don't want the things to queue there, we can do this back pressure. So the packets are queuing in before entering a certain processor or before reaching any certain connector. Prioritize queuing. Then at the same time, we can decide which queue is more important and what is the first element to be treated on the queue. And because we have all of this, automatically we get QoS. We can define if a queue needs to behave in a certain way, it can have a certain bandwidth, latency, it's loss tolerance, etc., which give us the QoS that we were wanting to. If we are optimistic, and of course, and if we become real experts on NiFi, this will mean sort of application QoS, which is a terminology that is very trendy and it's very, very good. But of course, I don't think that many applications are in this state as of today. Visual command and control. The fact that you don't need to troubleshoot with a command line, you don't need to look into logs, everything is graphical, you will see it now, helps a lot understanding and putting the abstract concept that NiFi is into concrete. And so we all have the same perspective, we all have the same point of view because we all look into the same graphical interface. Flow templates. This is the perfect refactoring and reusability concept. A workflow in NiFi is nothing but an XML file in result. So the XML file can be exported to another NiFi, can be exported to a NiFi templates repository from professional services, for example. It can be exported to Subversion or Git-like versioning tool. So you have different versions of your workflow. Once you get into that, for example, if you go with GitLab or GitHub, you can do branches. So you can create a branch that is dedicated for a specific customer with slightly different functionalities or of a workflow. So it gives you all the possibilities. But the one that I like the most is to unify the way we create customizations on customers. If we reach a point where our professional services customizations have a NiFi base, then we are all going to be able to contribute to NiFi. We're all going to be able to support NiFi for our colleagues, to share the knowledge. So we will be creating a community. So if we manage to do this, then we are all working with the same tools to do customizations. It means that we are no longer alone on site with the customer. We can reuse other people's work. We can ask other people to help us because we all speak the same language. Data provenance. This one we have already mentioned it, but it's the ability to track the data since it enters the workflow until it goes out. so you can track every modification of the data and where was it coming from. If you are doing routing or you're on your workflow and you are taking decisions, either go to this box or go to this other box, you can track what decision was made at that point and why. And finally, recovery, recording a rolling buffer of fine-grained history. So all of this is configurable, of course. We can retain as many information as we need or want or the customer needs to comply with our policy. And then we can recover this data, we can make it, we can run those flow files again, even if they were archived. And again, we can track them down to troubleshoot. We keep going with the NiFi key features. Security. So system to system. If we need to retrieve files from another host, if we need to communicate stuff to another host, all the security that we can think about is there. If we want to use SSH, we can. If we want to use HTTPS, we can. And we can use HTTPS as client and as server. If we want to handle SSH keys instead of password, it's already there. There's nothing to do. We just put the path to our SSH key. User to system. We can, when we interact with NiFi, we can have authorization to access NiFi. We can have HTTPS, of course. We can have encryption of all the data that is being handled. So all the config files, we were doing this the other day with Dennis, all the files that we have and the passwords that we put to protect, we can encrypt them. So even if our system becomes compromised and there's a user that is not allowed to be there and wants to look into our database, NiFi database or our NiFi config files, there's nothing he can see because everything is encrypted. And multi-tenant authorization. We can have different levels of access, then people can have rights to modify this or not, etc. Extensible architecture. So we can import plugins and create our own plugins. We have a class loader isolation for Java lovers. Then we have a site-to-site communication protocol. So if Matt in the beginning with the introduction was mentioning telemetry. As you know, telemetry can involve different protocols. For example, a very trendy one nowadays is gRPC from Google, the Google protocol buffers, Google protobuf. All of this is available with a processor. We can just create our processor that is there, and if the technology is not there, maybe somebody out there in GitHub or somewhere else have already created a processor doing this. And if it's not there in GitHub, it's not there at all, we can create it ourselves. Scale out clustering, we just went over that, and scale up and down. Of course, you can with the Java virtual machine, you can decide how much memory do you allow NiFi to use. With more CPUs, NiFi will be faster on computation, so all the scale up is possible. And of course, scale down by configuring with lower parameters. NiFi processors. So now it's the real thing. I've been talking all the time about these black boxes and connecting them, but what are these black boxes actually doing? Are they really saving me some job, or is just dummy stuff and in the end I'm going to have to put my scripts inside of it anyway? So let's have a look. I have grouped, well, I've done, this presentation was initially created by Tiriano, and then we are all adding a little bit. So we have grouped all the processors by the main functionality that they are related to, because there are a lot. And we are not putting all of them here. So just to go over through some of them, well, when it comes to relational databases, we have JDBC connectors, so automatically MySQL is there, and then we have connectors for Oracle as well, and automatically once we have this connector, we can execute our SQL queries. So we have processors to run SQL, to put an SQL, to list database tables, to query database tables, so we can build our SQL with variables, then we can query the database, and then we can check the results. And all of this is just done with processors. You open the configuration of the processor, you specify where is your database, what is the listening port, and then you just start doing SQL. And you don't care if it's a MySQL, if it's an Oracle, if it's a Microsoft SQL Server, etc. Then even further, things that processors that are not specifically related to databases, but that can help a lot. You know that in HTTP or RESTful APIs, the majority of them are using JSON as the base data structure, right? So what about if we can convert these JSON calls automatically directly into SQL? So if they have a right format, or if we have the schema of the JSON, just convert them to SQL, and we don't. And at that point, we don't even need to speak SQL to do this. We just see the JSON. We're able to map it. This this goes with the table. This goes with the columns that I want to ask for. Now you build the SQL query. And the controller, of course, because as I just said, when we have HTTP listeners or when we have schemas, etc., we want other processors to be able to access it. So we will create a connection pool. So if we create many processors that are interacting with SQL, they are all going to be using the same controller. Otherwise, each processor should be developing their own engine to connect to the database, and this would be completely inefficient. And this is just about relational database. Then we have the NoSQL database, the opposite. We have NiFi has automatic out-of-the-box processors to handle queries to HBase, Cassandra, Couchbase, MongoDB, DynamoDB, Elasticsearch from AWS, Splunk, Solr. So all of this, we can just hook a processor and start interacting with them. Cloud services. So we can read and write data out of the box, just connect a processor and define my IP of my Amazon box, etc., to do a simple queuing service, to do Lambda function, Kinesis, CloudWatch, the DynamoDB, all these fantastic Amazon Web Services that are already there. We can use them with our NiFi. We can interact in Azure with the blob storage, which I think blob storage, I'm not certain, but I am almost sure that blob storage is where Hortonworks has a lot of their products running on top of Azure. We even have on Google, we have a GCS Google and Cloud Bucket, and this is only for cloud services. Now, if we go into Hadoop ecosystem, then we can interact with all the software layers that are on top of Hadoop, because don't forget that NiFi is an Apache project. So Hadoop being an Apache project as well, they love each other. So HDFS, Hive, which is also an Apache product, Parquet, Avro, or whatever it's the right name of pronouncing it, Avro. I really want to highlight this guy because this Avro is a schema creator, and it can create schemas for CSVs, for XMLs, can create schemas for JSON. So if we are able to master this Avro, we're going to be able to convert data from XML to CSV, from CSV to JSON, and all the way around. We have Kite dataset, which I have never heard about, and HBase, which was mentioned before. On the bus, on databases, we can directly interact with AMQP, sorry. So somebody can tell me, and yes, AMQP is the queue system that is using that Vistamart is using. So our NiFi can hook directly into the ActiveMQ of Vistamart. It can retrieve data from it, and it can write data on it. JMS events, we can read them and create them. MQTT, Kafka, Evenhub, all of them are already there. And in fact, we have Thierry has played a lot with ActiveMQ. Networks and protocols. So we can create UDP sockets, TCP sockets, HTTP listeners, web sockets. We can send and receive emails. We can be control and control other system with mails. We can read syslog. We can be the destination of a syslog and then process it. We can generate syslog for other syslog processors like Splunk. We can, of course, read files from FTP and SFTP, but not only read them, be smart reading them. You know, our Vista links today, we have to tell them what is the history of data that they need to manage, you know, and they are always looking into the files inside this range. With NiFi, we can, it keeps a history of the files that it has been processed. So it will, if you, for example, use the read file from a processor from NiFi, it will, the first call, it will handle all the files, but the next call, it will only handle the new files, which is something extraordinary. And the same applies to putting files. You can put a limit so the file system is never full, or the number of files is never that, and this way you keep a window of files for troubleshooting purposes. So it's taking care of all this nasty stuff that is difficult to implement when you're using your own code, because it's a lot of side of extra things to do. SNMP, Slack, if you want to, if you have a Slack community and you want to receive some alarms, it can do it. So for all those customers, I don't know if you have a lot in the US, but in Africa, man, there are a lot that want to receive any kind of event in a specific way. Some customers, they want to receive events from Vistamar in their SMS. Some of them, they want an email. Some others, they want to receive Vista Cockpit faults also via email. So all of this, we can concentrate it, and we can reuse the same engine of emailing to satisfy our customers. Enrichment, allow to enrich data. So if we are using, for example, if we're dealing with packets that have an IP address or whatever, or information that has an IP address, we can reuse other site functionalities like whois, and then check what is the DNS resolution and who is the owner of the domain, etc. We can use GeoIP to geolocate the IP and see what is the provider, etc., and the owner. ISP IP. We can again use DNS. This is directly related with whois. And all of this, we can use processors like replace text with mapping to automatically pick up the source of the data and the other source that we want to combine the data with. So we have IP in one side and we have the GeoIP database on the other side. So with this processor can take all both sources and put them together. It will cross them and it will find the IP on the GeoIP database and then map it, and it will put it together. Just one processor. Transform. This is the complex stuff. So we need to transform the data. For example, from JSON to XML. Most likely, not most likely, for sure. Once Vista Foundation Kit has all their APIs in place, they are going to be using XML in the back end and JSON in the front end. So there will be there's a transformation that needs to exist over there. And in order to allow to change this content, we're going to have, of course, we have tons of processors to slightly change this content. NiFi even has its own language, very basic, but to manipulate strings. So it has a substring, it has comparison, it has conditional variable assignment. So some basic stuff to make sure that you, to make sure that you have all the possibilities. And what I want to highlight, and even if it's not clearly expressed here at the bottom, allow conversion schema based. This is the real key, because converting from JSON to XML or from XML to JSON without a schema will always most likely require either a lot of processors with a lot of regex and a lot of stuff to parse the text, or a lot of code to say, okay, I will generate my code to just convert from JSON to XML, and you need to do it yourself. Now, this is, even if I still see it better, because you are just embedding your code in NiFi, and then NiFi handles all the other stuff for reliability, production grade, etc. I'm still not satisfied that you have to develop code for it. So the real thing for transforming data is the schemas. And I am concretely going to refer to Abro because it's the one that I am playing with lately. So with Abro, I can define the schema of a JSON structure. And I can, with the same schema, I can also define what would be the equivalent of XML. So once I have both schemas, I have everything I need. I can just receive the input in JSON, and it will use the schema to convert to XML. So no code involved. Imagine, I remember Anup, not the one in the room, Anup, our product management manager for MKP. When I showed her NiFi, I mean, she was thrilled about this because you know how Huawei is picky, and even Ericsson, they have multiple northbound interfaces, they have multiple formats. Maybe if you change OSS version, also the format changes. So imagine if you could handle all of this just with schemas instead of rewriting code or modifying code every time you need to readapt. So convert record processor is one of the top guys from NiFi for our purposes, because we always need to, in the end, normalize data. And search, of course, once we receive information, maybe we don't need to convert it. Maybe we just need to find out what they are willing to. In example, with an API itself, imagine that NiFi is handling HTTP requests and receives a JSON structure. So the JSON structure, for example, has the provisioning mode or the provisioning target zone. So with a dedicated processor that is JSON path, which is the same as XPath but for JSON, you can just assign a part of the data structure to your variable. So automatically you can assign this Vistamart zone to your variable zone. So then when you are talking to Vistamart, you can say, yeah, I want to provision on this zone because I extracted this information from the JSON call that was done in this API. We have, of course, all the XPath to access XML properties and values. We have regex processors. We have scan processors based on the dictionary based, so the text files can be indexed, and then we can access those values. And of course, with regex, we have everything that is available with regex. You know that regex also can generate populate variables. You know, when you use the parentheses, you can generate multiple results. So all of those results can be accessed. Duplication detection, so you never handle the same workflow twice. If you want to have counters, for example, counter is something that is difficult to manage on a service because you need to make sure that the counter is never duplicated. So NiFi has a processor to generate unique counters, so you make sure that you never are duplicating anything. And of course, another super interesting one is that once you have a schema of your data, you can do SQL queries on it. So you can do SQL on the flow file itself. The flow file becomes a table, a database table, and then you can use SQL itself. One of the I found this very interesting when presenting it to EMEA team, because one of the EMEA consultants, Lukasz, the Polish one, he on Perl. He loves this module that allows you to use SQL queries on CSV files. So all the preprocessing he does with his customizations on the CSV files is with this module. When he saw this functionality of SQL querying inside the flow file, then he said, okay, I don't need Perl anymore. Now NiFi has the technology I need. Encoding. So NiFi natively manages ABRO, CVS, ORC, JSON, text, and XML natively. And allow to encode and to output data in base64. You need to talk with, for example, web servers, compress or uncompress, again, for web server purposes or for whatever reason, or for bandwidth optimization. So this is there, and encryption with standard TLS and OpenSSL. And scripting, even if I believe that NiFi can do 80–90% of all the customizations that we need, there may be some times where we need some extra effort that NiFi cannot cover because NiFi wasn't designed for that. So at this point, we can hook our code into NiFi, but not in a way like we do, for example, with Vista Cockpit. That in Vista Cockpit we can call our script, but what Vista Cockpit will be doing is first, it will call the Vista Cockpit agent on the host where the script is hosted. Then Vista Cockpit agent will call the script, meaning it will give the control to the operative system. Then this operative system will run the script, and then the operative system will deal with the output of the script and pass it again back to the Vista Cockpit agent, which goes back to Vista Cockpit. This process is the same if you have done it or if you use it. If you do system calls on your scripts with Perl or with Python, you are also facing this. Python or Perl, they are pre-compiled script languages. So it means that when you are doing system calls, Python or Perl stops running, gives the power to the operative system does the system call, and then again goes back to the operative system. If you do this in a loop, for example, you will notice that Python or Perl become very, very, very poorly performant. They become slow and they can do only maybe 10 or 5 iterations per second of the system call. While if you do a loop inside of Perl, you can do tens of thousands of loops in with a system call. So this is because we are handling the control to the operating system. So this is not ergonomic at all, and also it has a lot of vulnerabilities and not vulnerabilities, but bottlenecks, because they can make our process perform very poorly if the operating system is busy, loaded, or doing something else. We cannot control what is the status of the operating system before handling the control of our script. So all of this to say that NiFi, what it does when you put your code, it accepts all these languages, okay? Groovy is just a scripting version of Java. It accepts Python, JavaScript, Lua, and Ruby. I would be missing Perl here, but and maybe PHP, but for all the other guys, I think they are the top languages. So what we can do with this execute script processor is that, yeah, we write our code either inside the processor with the NiFi interface, or we create our own script. It doesn't matter, and then we just indicate the path. What I mean is that once the processor is activated, it will load and compile your code, meaning that when your code is being executed, it is not running the script that you created. It has already incorporated your code in memory. So, for example, if you have a syntax error, then when you activate your processor, the processor will give an error and will not start, will not be activated, because it will say, yeah, you have a compilation error, because it actually compiles your script. So it is running on memory. So it means that your code becomes much more powerful. And not only this, at Python and Groovy level, or at all of the levels, but I have only tried Python and Groovy. So at these levels, if you are familiar with object-oriented programming, you can create classes that override and inherit from NiFi, meaning that you can access the flow files content, you can access flow file variables, you can access NiFi controllers. All of that is at your disposal. You are really part of NiFi when you code. So this is really, really something. Of course, I would like to minimize the necessity of building code, but if you like coding, this NiFi is your best way to do it, because you just focus on the algorithm and you let NiFi handle all the heavy stuff, like overloading, security, policy compliance, all the stuff that we were discussing in the beginning of the challenges. And others, and we keep on going and talking about the processor. I'm going to finish right away. Sorry that I know I'm already 8 minutes over. So others, we can synchronize and control flows, meaning that we can make the flows talk to each other. So they are synchronized with, for example, an external system. So if a flow file is processed before time, it will wait until its turn. We can do routing of the flow files. We can order them, reorder them, classify them, distribute them. Then we have all the debugging tools, fuzzy hashing. So we can do hash of the flow files in order to sort of map them and identify them. I'm not an expert on that, so I cannot not go a lot into detail. Activity monitoring, counter management, the counter that I was mentioning before. And it has its own language that I was meaning. This is not about the processors, but it has a small language that is very easy to understand and very easy to implement to handle the variables and to manipulate them. So, for example, for data, timestamp data, if you want, you know, we always have to struggle with that, right? We need to maybe convert from the format that the customer is giving us to convert it to something that is compatible with VistaBridge or with Vistamart, so it can be read automatically. Then we also need to sometimes do operations on the dates. We have to round it to the 15 minutes or round it to the hour. All of this can be done very simply with the expression language from NiFi. You don't even need a processor. You just, of course, you need a processor to actually manipulate the data, but any processor could do it, because all the processors, most of the processors are supporting the expression language. And web UI. So this is the time for the demo. This is the end of the introduction. And I believe that, Matt, if I'm not wrong, you now have, you guys have 10-15 minutes of a break.
You know what? The schedule was actually for the first hour and 45 minutes to go through, but we're flexible.
Oh, excellent. Sorry. So I saw 45 minutes. Okay. So I'm very good to go if you guys are. Huh? So fully up to you.
Well, tell you what, we're flexible. I mean, I don't know if you have 3 hours packed of information, so why don't we just take 5, let everybody get a refill, let you get geared up for the demo, take a breather, and then, yeah, we'll go, I mean, we'll get going in about 5 minutes then. Just give everybody a
Excellent.
quick bio break.
Very well.
Good stuff, Paul.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks. Very well.
All right.
Okay, guys, so great. Let's keep on moving a little bit. So as we still have some time, before jumping to the reality, to the demo itself, I'm going to finalize the presentation so we cover the rest of the stuff. For example, competition. So probably this is an important question, why we chose NiFi and we haven't chose others. Which are the others doing similar things to NiFi? So first of all, introducing the other guys from Cloudera, we have something that is really, really very similar. It's a little bit less mature. And so far a little bit more complex to deploy because, well, for those of you who are running NiFi already, you have already realized how easy it is to install. And for those who don't, I tell you now, it is extremely easy to deploy. Then we have Cura from Eclipse, which needs to be embedded in Eclipse, which is a significant drawback. And Node-RED from IBM, and Flogo from TIBCO. We have realized that all 4 solutions are not at the same level of maturity, probably because NiFi started a long time ago. I think it's already more than 10 years from NiFi, while all the other competition, they started after 2010. So it's by difference the best of the class, but we have to keep an eye on these guys because one day they might catch up or even surpass NiFi. Example use cases, we're going to see a lot, but I want to show you some of the stuff that our architect area now has done because they are worth seeing it and they are really thinking out of the box. They have nothing to do with service assurance or InfoVista itself. First one, coverage map with Twitter. Hemel, I was showing you yesterday an integration with business intelligence, Hemel and Bill, in other contexts, but just doing this, you know, we can create some areas around the regions, the provinces, the countries, and say, okay, this is the performance of this region. Now, what Thierry did is to create a world map with all these regions, and then he was automatically retrieving data from Twitter and populating this map. So the more Twitter there were in a specific zone, the bigger or the more colored the region was. Basically, it is just collecting the tweets, extracting the geo information from the tweets, and then store it into a database. And only this is possible with, as you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 processors. And just for you to know, this processor, Graph Garden House, that you can see here in the top. Let me highlight it here. It says Graph Garden House, get Twitter. By the way, guys, I don't know how far are you from the screen and how big is the screen. So whenever you don't see something, you just let me know. I just configured a little bit of accessibility things so I can maximize and do some magnifying on the zone. So just let me know if something is not readable.
Actually, Jorge, that's a great point. Let's essentially take a quick maybe screen resolution break. I'm going to try to adjust my screen as well.
Can people log in to the go-to, or is it not a bandwidth?
People can log into the go-to.
Then you'll be able to see it.
Yeah. The problem is power in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring my resolution down a bit. And see if that helps at all.
I'm also doing the magnifying thing on the thing that I wanted to highlight.
Okay.
So it should be a little bit more readable. So if you see, I'm going to move, the title of the processor is Graph Garden House, and the real name of the processor is Get Twitter. So there's a processor already designed for you to play with Twitter. Because sometimes you say, okay, I want to put NiFi up to the test. You know, I want to really try to overflow it. I want to push it to push it as much as I can. So sometimes you don't have the tools to try and overload it with data. So who can? Any API that we can use massively. So for example, Twitter API. And then on top of that, there is a specific processor to grab tweeters from Twitter. So it is really designed for you to do some tests and to interact with something external and put it into NiFi. So I'm going to jump out of the magnification. Oh, there you go. So that's it. And just going back to what we were doing, collect tweets, extract your information, and store it into ADB, only with 6 processors. The next one, emit syslog as email. So first of all, you need to know that our Vistamar logs can be treated by syslog. As you know, syslog has a very specific format, but it also has communication protocols. So it means that syslog can be written on a log in a specific format, but it can also then be forwarded like an SNMP trap to another system. So what we're doing here is to listen to Vistamar syslog. We have to do a little bit of customization on Vistamar to be able to emit those syslog out of the log, out of the text file, and to emit them into NiFi. So once we get that, we just listen for the syslog to come. We listen, we open a socket, we listen into it, then we put all the content together, so we don't treat log per log, which would be not very efficient. So we accumulate them, we merge them, and then we extract the relevant information from it, and then we put it in an email. So and of course, in the middle of these flows, you can put conditions like if the text it's crossing a threshold, or if a specific instance or log entry is over a certain threshold, I email it. Otherwise, I don't do anything. So you could classify, filter, all the stuff here in the middle after the text is extracted. What it's doing, in a nutshell, listening to syslog calls, then grouping them by size and temporal window, so we can actually normalize it and push it into Vistamar. Then we're giving them some format, and then we're sending the email with this format. Build your first flow in NiFi. This is what one of the things. Well, this is exactly the activity that we created for the European workshop. So what they did, just to show you, is to add a processor that is a syslog listener and configure to listen on port x66. Then we add a processor to merge this syslog, and we add another processor to convert the content into email text. Then we are going to add a processor to send an email based on this message, and connect all the processors together and send Vistamar syslog message to your box on port 4556. So there you go, and this is what we did during that workshop, and then you are getting mails. For example, if your application services throws an exception, or if your provisioning finish properly or not. So all of this can be directly configured. Another example, stream real-time data to Azure for real-time reporting, and this is what we again what I was showing yesterday with the Power BI integration. So what we do is basically we stream real data into business intelligence, so we can create dashboards that are having live data but are not receiving the data from Vista Portal, are not part of the Vista Foundation kit. I will show you an example right away. Yeah, so we listen for our data, then we convert this data into Azure Event Hub. In this case, it's a custom processor, and then we put we just need to use an existing processor to put it into Azure. We don't even bother on specifying how to forward it to Azure. Another one, yeah, for this one, I'm going to stop just a second just to show it to you. The session most likely has already expired, so yeah, so give me a second. Okay, and there we go. Then very quickly showing you this. So an example of what is done today with NiFi would be this. It's to So we have our Vistamart in place in production. This is a demo platform for coming directly from us. And then if we go and jump to this embedded BI page, there you go. This data that you are seeing here is being streamed from our demo platform in Amazon, which is probably in Oregon, or I don't know which one of the two United States zones it is. And then it is streaming this data to Azure, which geographically I have no idea where, and then streaming it back to our Vista portal. So all this data, it's based on this architecture. If you have ever played with our demo, you will realize that these are the names that we use in our demo. So it's the same data that we're having and being streamed to Power BI, a business intelligence tool. So just to prove that what was here, what is the way it would look like in a real example, then we can convert webhook into stream. So when somebody is communicating with us with HTTP, we can decide to answer only when data are in. So we can store failed data for replay. We can then group the content, publish it again into Azure, or store it locally for further analysis. So basically, we can just create a web listener to receive information, treat it, and then forward it to somewhere else. Vistamart data streaming. This is where, again, a part of what I just showed you. Extract latest data using Oracle mechanism, convert to the right JSON format, and publish into Azure. Another possibility, building our first Vista Foundation Kit API. This is what we are putting in place with Charter. Create a web context controller, handle HTTP requests, support the post so we can receive the JSON structures. In this case, content will be a CSV file. In the reality, it's being a JSON structure. And then put the data on a disk and execute command to provision the CSV. In this case, we are provisioning the XML directly in the reality at the end. But this is how can it be done. Other possible use cases, and we are about to finish, convert IPFix, so for all NetFlow stuff and this kind of data collection, if our customer is not using SDM, the NetFlow probes, etc., we can just receive ourselves the IPFix flow, convert into JSON, and publish it to a database, in this case Kafka, which is specifically a use case for Ipanema. And as you are seeing with this architecture, we are streaming data. So if properly defined and properly architectured, it could be used to support telemetry. Another use case would be to export data from parser to data lakes. So of course we extract the data from Vistamart, we process it to reach the normalization of the data lake destination, and then we put it into the data lake. And the same way around, we can grab data from the data lake, normalize it, push it into Vistamart. And we don't care, again, we don't care how big the data lake is, because if we cannot cope, we just scale out. And then and the final one is use NiFi as a data ingestion in Vista Foundation Kit, which is the other way around. It's the same as the previous, but taking it from the data lake or from wherever and push it into Vista Foundation. And there you go, and that's it for the presentation itself. I don't know if you have any comments or questions before we jump into the reality of it.
I have a question.
Yeah, Dennis has a question. He's going to come up a little closer.
Hey, Jorge. Can you go back to the slide that had the 3 processors?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify terminology. So the large boxes are processors. The lines between them are the connections. What is the smaller boxes, those 2 smaller boxes?
Yeah, well, very good question. So if you remember, every connector can handle the queue themselves, can handle the connector is not just a point, a path for the flow file to follow. It is also a queue. So and this is where all the, not pushback, is back pressure, sorry. Yeah, this is where all this back pressure comes in. So if you see, I don't know if you see it, but here it says name and then it says queue it. So you can see how many flow files are being queued here, because imagine, for example, that this my processor is your own processor handling parsing some data. Maybe you are receiving flow files at a greater speed that you can process them. So they will start queuing here. And this way the connector makes sure that there is no lost data, because maybe your processor is busy. So what do? We discard the flow file, or how do we handle the flow file so it's not lost? So we put it in the queue. By default, the queue has a configuration which can handle, I think it's 1,000 flow files and 1 minute retention or something like this. But this is purely configurable. So don't worry about the initial default configuration. But when I do, Jim is asking here over GoToMeeting, what does back pressure mean? So here is a perfect example. Let's imagine that this connector in here is our key connector, and we are everything that passes here needs to be real data. We cannot allow anything to queue here. In this case, we have 3 queues, but let's imagine that it's 0 for now, and we want to keep it 0 forever. So we configure our queue, and when you say the length of the queue is 0. So what will happen? The back pressure will occur, because when a file is going to be queued here for to make it queue number 2, for example, it will not be allowed because the size of the queue is 0. So then it will be queuing in the previous queue. This is what back pressure means. It means that we can control where the queue piles up, and we need to optimize this so it piles up where it can pile up, where it doesn't bother. And also maybe a workflow has like 3 main processors to pass through, and until you pass to the last processor, you cannot consider that the data is fine, and you want to merge the content. So better to accumulate before these 3 processors, accumulate and merge as much as you can, and then let all this gross data coming through the 3 processors, and nothing is queued, and everything is processed into a single flow file. You could do this with back pressure before the entry of these 3 key processors, let's say. I don't know, Jim, does this explain a little bit? Back pressure is just to put the queue, not in your queue, but in a previous one.
Yep, thank you.
It makes sense. Yeah, that's a good explanation. Irene has a question.
Yeah, actually,
Sure.
It's a continuation on what you described. A lot of things when you get in queues in lines of different things, you need to really adjust the sizes and adjust the capacity and speed and all of that on the fly.
Right.
So how easy the configuration is.
So let me show you. Yeah, I'm gonna show it in just a second.
Okay.
Any other question before we jump into the demo?
I guess just a quick question on the queuing. If because we can cluster, we can do a lot with NiFi. Is the queuing also? I mean, will that push over to like a secondary process if we allow it to? If everything is full on, say, a primary system?
It's an excellent question. So I don't have the answer yet.
Okay.
We need to push. We need to push a little bit more NiFi to know understand these limits, because so far we keep pushing NiFi and we don't reach any limitation. We haven't reached any maximum queue size yet or anything like that. So we don't know. We would like to analyze this behavior, and effectively the queues are global to the NiFi cluster, let's say, or are local to each NiFi. This we need to investigate a bit more to make sure we have. But still, I think it's an excellent question, and I'm going to try and get an answer for that.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. So if it's okay for you, I think I'm going to jump, but please feel free to at any point interrupt, ask, whatever. So let me jump into my NiFi. First, I'm going to, oops, this is not the first screen that I want to show you. So this is the landing page of NiFi, okay? It's, I'm going to, let me maximize this so we can focus on, yes, there you go. So this is our NiFi GUI. It looks very simple, and I think it is very simple. So everything is blank. We just have a small grid to help us. I even believe you can remove this grid. So basically what we're going to be doing is to put processors. We select, because there are so many processors, there's a lot of filtering for them. So let's say that initially our first idea about a processor is to convert attribute to JSON or to do some JSON operations. So we can either click here to see all the processors that are related to JSON, or we can just type here, let me unselect this one, or just type here and everything that has JSON on it will also appear here. So let's just use the very first one just to show you how it goes, and then we go with attributes to JSON, and then we select another processor, for example, update attributes. So we get the attributes from JSON, and then we update our internal variables. So update attribute, and then we connect these guys. You can zoom in as much as you want, zoom out, and in order to connect two guys, you just grab this arrow that appears when you hover and link it to the other guy. You decide, do you want this to happen? Do you want the flow file to follow this path when a failure occurs, when a success occurs, so you can control the errors and the success? So of course we want only when the success happens. If the failure happens, that we would be redirecting it to another processor that basically maybe dumps an error message. And then the settings. In the settings is where we connect the behavior of the queue. So Irene, this is where my answer comes in. Then we have the back pressure definition. So it means in here that by default, when it reaches 10,000, it will start back pressure in the other queue. But we can increase this. I don't know if the limit is, there's no known limit. So I can keep typing zeros here. And you can decide if you want the back pressure to be triggered with a number of packets or with some certain size. So if you go over, I don't know, a terabyte, then you can go. Of course, if you're going to put a terabyte here, make sure that NiFi has 1 terabyte space on its living partition. This goes without saying. And the flow file expiration. Also, if we want to handle real time, or and 0 means no expiration. But maybe we want to say after a certain period of time, it timed out. There's no point in processing it. It's late already for where it went. So we can discard it. Then we can specify this here. We can say the flow file expires after a certain period of time. And then we can define the behavior of the queue. We can say that we want the first in, first out. We want the newest flow file first. We want the oldest flow file first, or the priority attribute prioritizer. Sorry, this means that we can. Sorry, I have a question from Hemel. Does the queue have persistence? Let me open the question. Does the queue have persistence? So if you shut down and start up NiFi, we lose no data. So very good question. You can define this on the NiFi configuration itself. You can define that when you properly stop NiFi, it will store everything. And yes, when you start it up again, you can have this. But you need to pre-configure it first. By default, if you shut down NiFi while something is configured, when it starts, it will try. But it is not warranted because maybe it needs to still do some communication. So the initial answer, short answer is yes. Long answer it depends on the scenario. But by default, it is possible.
And Jorge, just to follow up,
yeah,
with the queuing, are we able to alert or notify in some way if that queue gets built to a certain point?
Yeah, absolutely. What we can do is with the back pressure, we can force the flow file to be redirected to somewhere. Yeah. And when you start having back pressure, you will have a small rectangle here, a small square, okay, that turns red and say, hey, you are having back pressure. So you can be notified after that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's nice that it has the configuration, but the issue that I see is that when you have a very complex workflow, you need to have a better mechanism that you manually putting, the parameters. It's like the thresholds or something like that. So it would be nicer if it has something that say, I want no more than 1 millisecond delay on the queue, and then define automatically the size that it needs.
Yeah. And I think that for this, it's for this is where the flow file expiration comes in, when you are really worried about the timing and the synchronization of your data. And I haven't gone that far yet, but I know from theory that what you're saying is precisely possible. you can decide the amount of time that is tolerated. And if it's not, then you can decide to redirect this flow file to another place because it has timed out or it wasn't inside the time window that it was given. So all of this synchronization stuff that are very related to synchronization, maybe with timestamp that needs to be very accurate for real time or for timestamping. All of this can be managed. For this, what we can do, and I am not that advanced, but we can create a controller, a service that all of these guys can look at, which is giving us the synchronization parameters. So everybody will be looking at this controller to know at what time they are. The controller itself will be synchronized with an NTP server to make sure that we are in the same data that the other system that we want. And there's a lot of stuff for what it comes to this kind of data, synchronous data manipulation. But so far, I've only played with saturating the queues and not with the real time itself. But as I want to stress this, even if we are playing a lot with these limits, we haven't still been able to saturate a single NiFi yet. I mean, we can see that the files are they are queuing, but we don't never lose the data. Once we reduce the stream, then NiFi will keep on treating everything. At some point, yeah, we should maybe leave it running, but so far we have fulfilled the disk before NiFi was crashing. NiFi is really designed not to be the bottleneck. Of course, Irene, if you would like to have more specific information about this synchronization stuff, you would like to get some specific NiFi related answers, don't hesitate to throw an email with the use case, and then we will explain you which part of NiFi can cover what.
Sure, thanks.
Anytime. So yeah, and we were starting our NiFi stuff in here and placing some processors and start to work on it. But as I said, at some point, if you keep designing your things always here, okay, it's true that this is infinite. I can go wherever I want, and there will always be room for it. But imagine when this gets a little complex and we have everything in the same screen, it is difficult to administrate and manage. So what I'm going to do here is to delete all of them. I can select multiple, then delete them, and then I'm going to go to my usual working place. This is the test area that I have created for you guys for this session, and this is let's say development area. These are the workflows that we are putting in place. We have the RESTful Vista Foundation Kit API for our charter. We have a Google OAuth 2, so this guy is connecting to Google API using OAuth 2 credentials, and of course my Google account, and it's retrieving the location I am, the GPS coordinates every hour. So well, now it is stopped. Just for the fun of it, to be able to retrieve data in JSON format with heavy authentication. You know, OAuth 2 requires a lot of stuff to handle the token, manipulate the token. So all of this is done by NiFi automatically, and it communicates with Google, and it's providing this GPS coordinate, so I can track myself, let's say. This is a media server controller, very basic. Is just I have my media server at home, and sometimes I want to do some operations while I'm at the living room, but the media server is not in the living room. So I put the HTTP listener, and I have some basic operations that I can do with my mobile phone, just calling the HTTP listener, and then it either restarts the media server, it rescans the library, or whatever I need to do in the operation in my media server. This sandbox, it's trying to handle XML files from Ericsson OS SRC, so it is emulating a little bit the parsing that VistaLink is doing. This is what I showed to Anup, the MKB product manager. And then this guy, OTF, it's our latest acquisition. This was created by Florio Monsalvi, and it is very interesting because it is retrieving data from, we have found a very good monitoring data for our systems, for Vistamar, for IV servers, that is helping us a lot to identify bottlenecks in the hardware resources. I will show you very quickly just for you to understand the workflow. The thing is that this tool, this monitoring tool, has the ability to help you interfacing it with a backend. So of course we are interfacing it with NiFi. Then this net data is the name of the tool, is writing the stats into JSON format. Then we are either receiving the JSON format live in a socket or listing it into a file. As I said, this list file will handle the files that have already been analyzed. So I don't have to care about removing the files from NetData so they are not they are not analyzed twice. With list file, it will just grab the file that it needs, or we have the two possibilities, or we just listen. We open a TCP socket and we wait for the JSON data to arrive to us. Once we have that, we extract the data from JSON with JSON path with a pre-existing processor. Then we update our attributes, so we extract this data and we populate it into our variables and we merge it. So we don't because the data from this NetData tool is coming every 5 seconds. So it is too low granularity for our taste. So what we do is we merge it and we post-process it. So we do some first level of aggregation. So we push into 15 minutes data. And then how do we convert this JSON data into CSV or into something manageable? With our schema. We define our schema and then automatically it becomes a normalized data. So because it is normalized data, we can, let me highlight it here, we can query the record. So this query record is just querying inside the NiFi file, and then the flow file keeps going and it is put into a file. This would be the last step before it is provisioned into Vistamar with VistaBridge, for example. So we would be outputting CSV file. Now, just for you to understand fully the workflow, I'm going to drive you to maybe with this. Yeah. So, for example, this is the Vistamart on the demo platform. So, for this guy, for example, yesterday we had an important demo, and before this demo, I wanted to repopulate the whole demo platform data. This means 3 months of hourly data to recompute. Of course, this is going to saturate my Vistamart. But I want to know when it's saturated, how long it remains into it is not saturated anymore, and what is the cost of the saturation. So I have the CPU here, I have my I/O way to see my bottlenecks immediately, and then all of this information is forwarded. Moreover, because this net data is very fancy, we are able to map Vistamart services. So Oracle is SQL. If you're able to see, this is the light blue. The red one is Vistamart Computation Service. The green one is Vistamart Application Services, and the purple one is the new VistaDB service. Okay, so you are seeing how they behave all the time. Of course, now they are very calm and they are not going even over 10%. But a couple of days ago, when I was doing all this recovery data, all these 3 months of recomputation, and this was crazy. And at some point, it became very, very slow. Like we know it happens, right? And with this, it was very, very easy to see on the disk that the bottleneck was the reads from Oracle. Reads from Oracle were saturating my my disk from operations. The disk operations were crazy here. They were always over 100% in here on the pink one. And then there was nothing we could do on the database. At that time, you have to wait until all the recomputation is done. Oracle is able to read all the values it needs, do the computation, and then store the value again. So you can see effectively how your data is. So because we like this tool so much for this kind of troubleshooting to identify the hardware bottleneck, then we want to integrate this into our Vistamart. We don't want to adopt it worldwide. This is not something I'm going to push to you to start using NetData. Just to show you that an external collector can be automatically be plugged into NiFi to provide to normalize the data and then be pushed into Vistamart. So this is what we are doing basically. We put net data in here. The net data is either writing into files or pushing directly the JSON data on our TCP listener, and then we process this data, we aggregate it, and once it is properly processed and aggregated, we place it for Vistamart insertion. And sorry, I jumped right away inside of this one because I really like it. What I created for this session is the test area. We're not going to go so complex just yet. And for the test area, and for all of you who have NiFi today, for example, I know Bill is using NiFi. I know Dennis has got in touch with NiFi. If you guys want to use NiFi, I know Irene, you use Mac, so NiFi can run also on Mac with a brewer, the command to do this kind of installations. Then, of course, on Linux, this is the one I like the most. It is designed to run on any Linux. So if your customer doesn't like Red Hat a lot, let him choose. It can run on Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, Red Hat, CentOS, Arch Linux, you name it. Then test area. So before I enter the test area, I want to let you know that I have created this. I will send you all the details after the session, so you can go on and use them yourself. I have my own GitLab. Okay, this is my personal GitLab and my personal domain. This is my personal domain. Some of you already know it. When I'm sharing things with you, I'm always using this. And I have my GitLab box in here. Okay, so I have created this repository. It is a NiFi getting started. Okay. So it is a lot of NiFi examples to collect stream logs, to monitor IoT. So if you guys have IoT, maybe, you know, I find NiFi very motivating, not only for InfoVista, but to catch up with nowadays technology. So hooking your NiFi with your Arduino, with your Raspberry Pi can be a very good idea. So here are some tips to do it. OLTP to OLA app. CSV to JSON, this one we're going to see it right away. The compression, for example, if you have files that are multiple time compressing, you can create in NiFi a loop to decompress it until you get the original file. HTTP operations to receive data, to post data, how to create loops, how to split your routes, the Tweet and Garden host, Tweet and Solar, and then some tips to install NiFi. Install NiFi on Mac, install NiFi on Linux, and NiFi runs perfectly on Windows as well. I strongly recommend to use NiFi documentation. It's very rich, it's very good. It is nifi.apache.org and documentation. So you have the frequent asked questions. We have all the NiFi docs. There's a lot in here. And if you want the downloads, of course, it's fully Apache licensed, so 100% open source with a big community. You know, Thierry and now myself have registered into their support system, and we open a couple of cases, and these guys give you an answer in less than 24 hours. Sometimes it's even better than paid support. So it's astonishing. And nowadays we are in release 1.3. And the incoming release is 1.4, which you can already start tasting. Yeah, you have you have the sources if you want to compile them themselves, and you have the zip file for Windows and the target set for POSIX systems. So one of these two guys is going to help you. Then if you want to do all the production grade of NiFi, which probably you don't want to do that for your personal NiFi, then you have the NiFi toolkit. All of this is for the encryption of configuration and for other things that I don't even know yet, because I don't use NiFi in production grade mode, but I am catching up with this step by step, and especially when Thierry assigns me some tasks and we need to implement them. Then one question could be, why do we have a release 1.3 and the other is 0.7 when the previous to this one is 1.2? It is just for legacy purposes. When Hortonworks acquired NiFi itself, they were using this 0.7.4, so it has some backward compatibility for specific stuff, but we can basically forget about it. We always can use the latest release. And also, when we started working with NiFi, it was 1.1, and we have been upgraded to 1.2 and to 1.3 without any issue at all. So upgrade is also been proved. So going back to our NiFi. What I wanted to mention, sorry, I'm not going back right away. This is a regular Git project, so you can go, all the examples are here, and if you enter an example, for example, CSV to JSON, this is a very basic example to convert CSV entry to JSON using two processors, extract text and replace text. So we have the README file and we have the XML. The XML is the NiFi workflow, and this is everything I need. So for example, I go here, I download it. I have already downloaded it, okay? So because I have already done the exercise, I open this file, then I have my get started. I have all the same folders that I have here. I just have them when I click on download. If you are using a POSIX machine, you can just use a git clone and the HTTP, and then you will have it in your PC automatically. So I have imported this CSV to JSON, but I'm going to show you how to import another one, just to show you how we can reuse the workflows. So for example, I am going to put this XML into my into one of my folders because it is currently being compressed. So I go to my download folder, I put it here, and there we go, and the name is simple. Yeah, okay. So I don't know what is not going up. Is it simple HD? Yeah, here it is. In fact, yeah, okay. So we have this guy. We go to our NiFi, and we have this example. Now I'm going to create another group to put this template inside this group. Okay, so I'm going to create this group, and we saw that the name of the file was collect stream logs. So we're going to name it like that, collect stream logs. I create this group, I enter my group, and then first things first, I'm going to upload my template. So I'm going to select the template that I just downloaded. I have this simple whatever, simple HTTP GET root flow. Yeah, this is the one. I upload it, and it says already exists. Perfect. Simple web pull extract. Excellent. So it's already there. I just need to place it. So I grab, instead of grabbing a processor, this time I'm grabbing a template. And when I place I drop my template, I can select. So I have my Vista Foundation Kit API, I have other stuff, and I have the one that I just wanted to import, which is this one, and I add it, boom. So I have the get HTTP, the treatment, everything is there already in place and waiting for me to be used, except the put file, where it has a warning. If we look into the warning, it says directory is invalid because directory is required. Of course, if we want to put a file, we need to configure it. So that's why we have this warning. Then we go to configure it, we go to our properties, and the directory is empty. So let's just write /tmp. And now if we apply, there's still another error. And then, yeah, is that we don't have a continuation. It is saying relationship success and relationship failure are not defined. There are no connectors. What do I do when I fail? So what I do is to connect to myself and tell it, it ends here. So failure and success end here. And now my guy is ready to run. Now we don't have the warning anymore. And I have my queue that is being queued here. So I can even queue in a loop. Yeah, sorry, come in.
Question. Okay, yeah, just a quick question. This kind of workflow looks like very similar to the cockpit workflows where
right.
So I was wondering, we have the same kind of errors when you import a workflow to an architecture. We have different servers. So we have similar kind of features where you can put the variables and then you the variable for everything.
Yeah. Absolutely, and in fact, this is very good point, Asen, because I was already losing my patience because of this. So very good that you mentioned. You know, the other day we were integrating Dennis and we were integrating NiFi for charter. And then Dennis imported the RESTful Vista Foundation Kit API workflow XML file, and of course, as you just said, we had to modify a lot of parameters. And when we thought that we had modified 100%, still was failing. You know, there was a hidden parameter there that I forgot to put into where we update the attributes. So there are two policies that we can do to overcome this. The first one is to choose a place where all the variables are defined. But this is not going to solve the problem. It's just you're just going to have one single warning processor, and it's not really addressing the issue. But what I did for the Google Auth with the Google authentication, because you know I have to store the token that I'm using with Google. So what I did here is a load config box. Oops, sorry. Let me put it. Yeah, load config. Okay, it is just a group. So what this load config is doing, what I'm doing is to write all these configuration parameters like the directory or the Vistamart, the host address or whatever. I put them in a text file. So the workflow doesn't expect any parameter to work. This only expects to be able to read the config file. So this workflow is actually portable, the one for Google, because it is actually reading the config file first, and then when it finishes, it is writing the config file. So if you renew the token or anything like that, if something changed in the configuration, at the end in here, I am going to be able to save it into a file. I save the flow file attributes into a file, so this way I can use the text file as the configuration. So I think that this could address the functionality, right, Asen? If you are able to program your workflow to read from a text file, then you know that your specifics of the customer are separated from the NiFi workflow, and then your workflow becomes truly generic.
Yeah, that's very good for the portability of the those packages between environments or even between project to project, right?
Right, exactly. So this is a very good point that I consider that I am not good enough yet because I failed the other day with Dennis. So thank you for the reminder, and it's something that I will put my head on it to make the NiFi workflows more reusable in this sense. So now, if we go to the test area, we have created we just created the collect stream logs by importing our workflow, and then this is the other guy that I created. I just imported is the CSV to JSON converter. So first, before even I start talking about it, I'm gonna play it. All of these guys now turn into play button, and let's see what it's doing. Yeah. So it is generating. You see that we have an in and out. So it means how many flow files were in and what is their size, and how many flow files were out and what is their size. So this guy is generating a flow file every, I don't know, every something. One byte size. Yeah, it's only generating one flow file. So I need to stop and make it run again to make it run. But you see, we have generated the flow file and it has gone over all of them. In here, we have only one out. Oh, there you go. More files. It keeps generating. So it's very good. You see, this is a never stop workflow. And what can we do for it? First of all, I'm going to show you this flexibility that we can stop it and start queuing. So we stop only this guy, and now we should see that at some point when this guy starts generating more flow files, they are going to start queuing here. You see one queued. It just generated another one, and now we have one queued. If we stop, they will be queuing there. If we wait there, they're going to be queuing until I don't know, until it explodes or we open the door again. So let's see how many we have now. 2. Now I hit play here, and then I refresh, and no longer there, and 2 more has been processed. I can stop as many workflows, as many processors as I want. I can stop this one and stop that one, let them accumulate. Let's wait for one. Let's wait for one to be generated. This one is queued. You see, I closed the workflow before this one passed, so this one is queuing there. Now it's queuing on that one, so if I play this one passes, and now we should see 2 there, and now 3 actually, because we have a new one coming from there. So you see, we can decide where we are queuing. Now let's say that this has something wrong. We open it, we change it, and say, oh, my regex is wrong. Oh, sorry, no, I cannot. So I will open it again. It's like I have a. Yeah, so let's say that one of my parameters, yeah, it's like I cannot see this properly. Yeah, that's strange. Maybe I have to refresh. Okay, in any case, let's say that one of these is my problem, so I just change it, fix it, change the value, then accept it, and then let them pass again, and start, boom. So they keep going. Now, let's keep a little bit a closer eye on what this guy is actually doing. What the name of the workflow is, you can see it below, it's CSV to JSON. So let's see, this is generating an empty flow file of 1 byte. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to replace all the text, which is 1 byte, by a CSV column, A, B, C, D. And this is our CSV. Of course, instead of doing these 2 guys, we could just have a bunch of CSV files in our directory and list files instead of using these processors. But this makes the workflow independent, and you don't need to have a directory with CSV existing files. So this way you can run it, as you import it, you can run it, okay? But we all agree that it's not the best way to generate CSV files, right? Okay, so we have a CSV file with 4 columns, A, B, C, and D, and that we want to convert into JSON. Then the actual workflow starts here. This is reading CSV. So this is going to extract the CSV. How? Now it works. So this is extracting the CSV with regex. You see, it is saying everything that is between a comma is a parameter for me. So because we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 columns, we are going to have CSV.1, CSV.2, CSV.4. Because the regex can give us multiple results, right? So this, because it is between parentheses, is going to give us a result, and because we have 4 parentheses, it's going to give us 4 results. So I know, just to let you know, this is a manually created property. All these that are bold are existing properties. So it means that this processor is always using all these properties. You can decide what to do. If you want to Unicode, if you want to limit the size of your buffer, just to, I don't know, to be faster or to be more efficient. So this is out of the queue. Huh? This is just the processor. So you see, Irene, you can also configure the behavior of the processor itself. Then you can configure the capture group length, so you don't accept CSV files that are too big, that can maybe make your CPU crash or something like that, to protect yourself. And then a lot of stuff about text files that most likely we don't care until we find this customer that has this policy. No, we only use Unicode files. So for this, you can use this. And then we can add all the variables that we want. In this one, it's CSV, but I can add another variable. In order to modify a workflow, it needs to be stopped. So I'm going to stop it and add another parameter, and that is going to be my variable. And I know that, for example, this variable can reference the status, my status variable. Okay, let me be English proper. There you go, status variable. Status variable. Oh, there you go. And I know that because of the position of this process, this means that is before becoming JSON, okay? So I have this status applied. There you go. He doesn't like the variable. Invalid because regex. Okay, we can only apply regex in this case. So if we put if we want to put a plain text variable, we need to you put it in a different workflow. So in a different processor, sorry. So this guy only accepts regex, so it means we want to parse something. So let's say that we want to parse my variable. We want to extract all the A columns. So my variable is going to be all those guys. I know the A is in the beginning, so it's going to be all the things that are having, and then a comma, and then and there you go, and then something else, and then the end. There you go. So now we have this. It will compile the regex. So if my regex is wrong, syntactically wrong, I will have another warning here. And now I can start it and keep processing. So all these 10 guys that were queued here are now going to get my variable being set. And now let's keep on looking. So this guy was extracting the text. It's extracting the CSV variables, and then we are going to convert it into JSON. So let's see how replace text is converted. So we replace everything, and with the JSON structure. So the first field is CSV1. Because we wrap the variable. Let's make this big so you can all see properly. So we wrap the variables, and this is the expression language that lives inside NiFi. It's very simple, but it helps us reference variables from plain text. So this is the plain text to create the JSON structure. You know, JSON needs to start with this, with the opening bracket, blah, blah, blah. Then the variables are populated with the corresponding value, and it's extremely simple, but we do have a JSON structure here. So we have converted our CSV to JSON, and each column will be in JSON field number, column number. So column 3 will be field 3, column 4, field 4, etc. And the final one is update attribute. Why? Because update it's a way of not having a warning here. Because if you don't put anything in here, it will say, I need something to finish. I need to be connected to something to send my replace text to. So we just put a dummy guy in here that is really not doing anything. It's not really updating any attribute. Okay. Okay. So, but what we could be doing here, just for the sake of completing our work, is that we can say, okay, I want that now my variable, the one that I was using before, exactly the same. It's now an operation with what I did. So it's going to be the previous value of my value And then we can apply on this, I don't know, my value, and then concatenate it with B. Okay, and then we are just modifying the it's my var, not my val. So it's my var. There you go. So my var is going to be A. Now we're going to have that we're modifying my var to become AB. It's probably not useless, but you see how variables are manipulated. The same variable is manipulated with different processors. And now for the final action on this workflow, I want you to show you the flow files themselves that we've been seeing, okay? So for example, you see this in 30 and out 30. It means that we have a history of the last 30 flow files that went there. But so let's take a look on the flow file before it enters the extract text. So let's look at the data provenance here. And you see it is providing me an interface to look for all the flow files. You see flow file UUID. So all the 30 flow files are in here. These are the 30 flow files that we have seen. So, and now let's take a look on this flow file. Just by clicking here, it opens the flow file. So we have what was the duration of the lineage. We have what attributes were modified, the UUID, the size of the file, and what was the component name that is holding it, the processor name, processor type that is holding it, and then we have all the attributes. So, for example, if you remember, our CSV variable is now populated. So we have on CSV1 we have A, B, C, and D. On my variable we have A as we thought, and of course because it is an irregular expression, it has parentheses. I have my variable 1, just as expected. A path that was previously set. This is not our variable, but it's here in the flow file. That is the root. And then the content of the flow file. If you remember, the content was one thing and the attributes was a different thing, okay? So the content, we can either download it and see it ourselves or see it here. You see, is the original CSV that was created. So we see it as it is. And if it's an XML file, we can see it. And if it's a JSON, we can see the JSON as it was sent to us. And then that was before we start transforming the stuff, right? We see that all the variables are being populated, etc. Now let's go to the next one and let's do the same thing. Data provenance. What were the flow files looking like before and after they entered this replace text? So we have the same attributes because it's the same flow file, only one step after. My file name, my variable, all of this is still there, and the content, it's still the same. So when is my my content actually changed afterwards? So we're going to have to look at the input of this update attribute. So let's go to the data provenance again. We got our 30 flow files again, and in here we start seeing some other thing. Is the same flow file appears twice because it's the end of the workflow. So we have our actual flow file incoming, and then we drop it because there's nothing after that. Okay, so when the flow file is dropped, this is an action. So because it is dropped, it is registered. Because maybe it was wrongly dropped. So you want to know that. You want to know that this processor took the wrong decision. It dropped the flow file when it shouldn't. So we know that it has been dropped. Now, if we look into this file, of course, it's the same. They even have the same timestamp. It will have the same attribute and the same content because indeed it's the same file. So the first thing is that my variable has changed instead of, and it tells you what was the previous value. Okay, and before it has been modified, and the content is now our JSON file, but not with variables, with the value of the variables. So now our ABCD CSV file is completely a JSON structure, and this is happening all the time. And we can increase the frequency of this, we can reduce the frequency of this, flow file generation, etc. So question here, because I started 2 hours ago with a very abstract stuff. After this explanation, do you understand NiFi better? Do you feel that does this make sense?
Yeah, I mean, so far so good for me, and I think the rest of the room, Jorge. I mean, it's a very good overview so far.
Okay, great. Very good. So I don't know, guys. Now it's yeah. Okay, thanks you.
Okay.
Yeah. Hassan, yep, tell me.
How you see now NiFi with Vista Bridge? Are there going to be like more kind of competitors, or are they going to be complementary?
No, I mean, it's an excellent question. So how do I see it? First of all, today I see them as friends. Tomorrow, I see that NiFi is going to kill Vista Bridge if NiFi is able to cope with the same push quality or push performance than Vista Bridge. Why today and tomorrow? Today, I think they are perfect companions because today we don't have official Vista Foundation Kit API. It means that either we make our NiFi flow talk XML SOAP, or we need something else to push our data. What's something else? Today I see Vista Bridge as our perfect companion. We put from NiFi, we output into CSV, and we of course need to have the corresponding XML config file. And then with NiFi itself, we call Vista Bridge to push the data. So after this step, where our CSV file is converted to JSON, let's say JSON is our new supported format, you could just write into JSON and then call Vista Bridge to push it. So for this, I say that today they are best friends because one complements each other. NiFi grabs the data and puts it into CSV, and then CSV puts it into Vista Bridge, into Vista Mart, sorry, with Vista Bridge. But tomorrow we're going to have Vista Foundation Kit API, and there will be an API call to push the data. So in my opinion, it will be directly from NiFi to Vista Mart API. There's no need to use Vista Bridge in the middle. Now,
can we say if we have like a Vista Bridge processor, like an equivalent of Vista Bridge processor in the library,
yeah,
then we don't need
exactly that. Exactly, and you know, moreover, and this I am just speculating. It's just an open discussion with you guys, but because Vista Bridge is created in Java, maybe we can just reuse some of the code there, the good code of Vista Bridge, because Vista Bridge is very efficient, and to put it into a processor. And we can have a Vista Bridge version, a NiFi version of Vista Bridge.
Right.
If you see what I mean. But of course, this is a speculation, and we don't, maybe we not necessarily need to think in this direction, but just to give you a glimpse of the possibilities of interfacing with Vista Bridge or with Vista Mart directly.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I see a lot of flexibility for the future of the Vista links themselves, not the bridge.
Yeah, Anup is crazy about this.
Because now you're getting an open API, so pretty much it will be easier just to create a link.
Precisely.
From one MS to the system, which actually is a huge issue with most customers.
Right, absolutely right. So, guys, let me show you something a little bit more complex, because this workflow from NetData, I really love it, but as you see, still I'm not pushing to Vista Mart, so it's not a closed workflow that I can demo to you. Oops, sorry, not configure. So let me show you a working workflow in here. Okay, the Vista Foundation Kit API. So it is quite complex. Let me say that it has groups of groups. So every box in here that you're seeing is not a processor, it's another box. So very high level, we're going to create an HTTP listener in here, and then depending on the URL that I'm using to call NiFi, it will redirect me to data push API, which I don't have any yet. It's 000, so this is a work in progress. Or to the topology API to, for example, retrieve topology. What is the property value of this instance? What is the, how many instances have this property value? All of these topology queries. Provision API, which is implemented. So this means that we can now use Vista Mart provisioning in a RESTful API way. And we have Vista Discovery API as well to do the same, to cook a discovery, and then we decide with the API call if we want to push to provision this Vista Discovery or to retrieve the XML to parse it, and before we provision it again to Vista Mart. And then of course, because it's an API, we need to provide HTTP responses, right? So these guys, sorry, it's very cluttered, but everybody is using it because this is the HTTP responses. So of course we're going to need a 200 if everything was okay, a 404 if you ask for something syntactically correct but I cannot find it, or a 5000 if I have an error. Maybe it's internal error, maybe it's your syntax error, I don't know, but I need to give you an answer, an HTTP answer. So all of these guys are interacting with the HTTP answers to provide. And as you see, all of these connectors, they are saying what they are doing. This is going to 500, this is going to 404, this is going to 000, you see, and all of this. And then we have a response cooker. So in case we want to enrich our response, we can do it here. And we have a session management. Why session manager? Because when I use my API, it's RESTful, right? So RESTful means stateless. This means that the HTTP response from this guy from NiFi is not going to tell me my next status. If I am the client, I don't know if my provisioning was successful or not. I just know that my provisioning went through. But did it have an error in Vistamart? I need to have the means to check what was the result of my transaction. So this session manager is going to be to handle, thanks to NiFi, of course, all the transactions, and which the transaction in the end is a flow file. So it is very easy to keep a track of the transactions, because I just need to store the flow files. And then when you want to check what was the status of the transaction, I just give you the flow file parameter of the status. So let me do this a little bit in detail. So sorry guys, because sorry for Bill, Hemal, and Dennis, because they have already seen this, and maybe it's heavy to see the demo a second time, but for the other guys, I really want you to see this. So now let's put this to the test. Everything is on play, everything that can be in play button. So there's nothing stopped. This is listening. So now let's do it. Let's interact with it. Of course, again, when we do clients of this, it is customer responsibility or the client responsibility to find out about their status. So we can do this with curl, but curl, I'm not going to be using CLI interface. I already have no, sorry. I'm not going to be using a CLI interface on a demo, right? Because it's too heavy. So what I'm going to use, it's a GUI that I have. It's a GUI for to test APIs. It's very popular, and I strongly recommend you to use it. And it's called Postman. Postman and Postman. There you go. So this Postman is not only good to test 1 or 2 API calls and see if it works. It's only good to create a unit test. So you can create batch tests and then hook them, and well, it has a lot of stuff. I'm not going to stop a lot in here, but let's say that it has a nice visual way of interacting with the APIs. So don't forget, guys, that what we are looking for here is to build HTTP requests to interact with our Vistamart, right? So the first one you may want to say is, okay, I'm going to provision something. So I'm going to use our, take a look at the URL. Can you guys see the URL? Or maybe I should use some zoom on it. Just a second. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So here's the URL. We have this version 0 first. This is a TMF recommendation, so we have to follow the standards. Because this is a prototype, we're using version 0. The first version of the API will be version 1. Then we have a provision, and this will redirect us to the provision API. It could be topology, it could be discovery, it could be data. So this is redirecting us to the right API. And then we have the provisioning mode. In this case, is device. It could be change, it could be delete, whatever. And then the zone name. It can be any zone name. It is the tag actually. Okay. And then we also have the how do we exchange the data? So in this case, we're choosing post, meaning that my topology is going to be on the post. And what is the format for this topology? Well, the one that is used by all the RESTful APIs, JSON. But our Vistamart doesn't support JSON yet, right? So there will be a step to convert this JSON to XML, and then we provision it. So let's look into it. Let me close this guy. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have our URL, we have the post mode, we have all the HTTP modes we can use, get, put, patch, delete, whatever. And we have built our JSON structure. So just a moment of your time to go through the JSON structure, okay? Usually, we just said before that a JSON structure begins with this curly bracket. But then why is this beginning like if it was an array? Well, because it is an array. Okay, JSON, it can begin with both. Usually when it's an object, it will begin with this, and when it is an array, it will begin with that. So it is an array of objects. Logically, it is an array of basics. Now, our first basic, it has the name, a tag. If you see, they are the same XML attributes. Okay, there's nothing new here. We're just putting all the XML attributes in here, and then the properties below, right? And the properties is another array, so I can have a lot of properties, and I'm just using the value and the WID, because since it is information to be exchanged between the machines don't care about the name of the property. You all know that this is the property IP address because of the WID, but maybe you don't know what is this one. It is the vendor. okay? But we don't care, just it was my point. Now it's the properties and then the proxies. We have another array with all the proxies. In this case, we have router 1 and with one interface and router 1 with another interface. So, and inside we have the interface name and we have the interface P. So super simple JSON structure. We are embedding into each other. So we finish the proxies, we finish all the array of properties, the array of proxies, and then the next object. The next object is our next basic, router number 2, with the same exact structure. 2 properties, 2 proxies, 2 properties, each proxy. So we have a very simple topology structure that we want to provision. Before we are able to put, we are putting it in the body because POST uses the body to put the data, right? And of course, we have to be a little bit more, let's say, clean and standard, and be polite and do our HTTP call properly. So for this, we are going to specify that we are sending JSON. It doesn't matter for our NiFi. It is more about complying with the API standards, okay? But our NiFi is going to be able to read and see this property, but it's not going to take care of it, at least in the workflow that I'm going to demo to you. So we have everything to create our HTTP query. We have the topology, we have the headers, we have the URL. So now let's go for it. Send it. And there you go. But first of all, I receive an answer, transaction ID, right? So what is this for? So I can track it down. Then I have an HTTP answer, 200, meaning that when we went through these HTTP responses, it has chosen the 200. So we have our response 200, correct, great. And it took 109 milliseconds. So you can anticipate already that Vistamar provisioning is not over, right? Vistamar provisioning can be fast, but never milliseconds. It takes at least a couple of seconds, right? So this means that I am getting the response before knowing if Vistamar provisioning was successful or not. So because it is a RESTful API and it is stateless, the purpose is to be able to handle a lot of HTTP calls, not to make the call and wait until everything is provisioned and give me the Vistamart result. This would be hanging my HTTP client for minutes, maybe. This is crazy, right? Maybe even the HTTP connection is lost in the meantime. Maybe by the time the answer comes, I've seen provisioning that takes half an hour. Maybe by that time, the response is not going through. Maybe the operative system closed the socket already. We cannot be hanging there waiting for Vistamart to respond. And of course, it's not that's not RESTful policy, because it would be saying, yeah, don't worry, sit there because I am going to give you your next status. No, it's the client responsibility to do this. So what I'm giving, usually the APIs give you a token. So this is the same. I'm giving you a token to follow your transaction. In this case, I don't call it token, I just call it transaction ID. So I can go and see my transaction ID result. But before this, well, I forgot to show you that the Vistamart was empty, right? Because now you still may not believe me, right? That I already put this Vistamart things in there. So let me show it anyway. What is the local Vistamart that I'm using? There you go. There you go. Okay. By the way, guys, Vistamart 6 is awesome. The new inventory tool, it's very, very useful. The new data action tool is extremely useful, but none of this is for this session. So I'm going just to focus on displaying the instances. And there you go, my router 1 with its 2 proxies and my router 2 with its 2 proxies. But not only this, if I go and say what was the job that provisioned it, if I go to my, to the jobs, I can see my device mode that was run just now, of course in my time, but there it is. So, and of course nothing was provisioned because it was already there. So the topology was already there, not great. So what we can do is with the same API call, we can do, instead of device mode, we can do delete mode. And now what we would expect, delete mode, what we would expect is our instances to be disappeared. Again, if we go on, now yes, I am going to go to uncheck my transaction. So I place my transaction here. The URL, if you cannot see it, is provision status. Because the status is not a provisioning mode, the API automatically detects that you want to know the status. And I am not putting anything in the body. So I don't need a post. I'm using get. Okay? So now I send this. And what do I get? The status provision successful. So it means it was already provisioned. Okay? And the result log is 0. This 0 is the result of the Vistamar provision in CLI mode. So if you run VM provisioner.sh, blah, 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 with all the config, and you hit enter, the result of this enter is going to be placed here. So 0 means okay, and not 0 can mean many things. The other day with Dennis, we saw what meant zone doesn't exist. I tell you, if you go to the Vistamar application services log, it will not tell you that the zone didn't exist. We had to figure out ourselves, Dennis and I. So basically, it is giving you a JSON structure of the result of your transaction, and we just curate there. Now let's go back to our Vistamar and check again. Now we see our routers because I haven't refreshed, and if I refresh, no more routers here, right? And if I go to my to the job itself, I can see that the delete mode was successful, and I can even look into the report, okay, of the report. So yeah, you can see how it went. The Vistamar 2 routers were deleted, 4 LAN interfaces were removed, etc. So full integration, let's say. And now let's look at NiFi itself and how it went. First of all, we go, of course, well, sorry guys, I went too fast to this. First of all, we go to our HTTP listener, okay? Let me, there you go. HTTP request. So we have made already 3 calls to the API, right? So they are all 3 here. We have made 1 device mode, 1 delete mode, and 1 status check. So all of these 3 guys have been generated. Then we route on attribute. If it goes to the data push, to the provisioning, or to Vista Discovery, or I don't know what you asked for, sorry. So in this case, they went to the provision API, right? So now we leave and we go, oh yes, one more thing. If you remember from the URL, I didn't specify the port. So it means that NiFi is listening on port 80. Of course, I created my listener to listen wherever I want. So listen in port 80. Why? Because URLs are nicer where you don't specify the port, right? Only because of this. You can specify a lot. You see, you can deny post requests on your HTTP listener. You can accept additional HTTP methods. You can use client authentication. And of course, you can use SSL to put HTTPS. You see, you don't have to wrap it with Apache like we do with Portal. This guy is giving us the SSL itself. So you don't have to rely on an external web server. And even a host name, you know, because maybe you don't want to, maybe even if it receives queries on port 80, maybe they are not the right host name, like if it was Apache, when you define your virtual host. Maybe the server name doesn't match, so I don't want this even if it's on port 80. There you go. Now, once we figured out, oh yes, sorry, how do I route an attribute? How do I route an attribute? So I use the language. I use regex, I reuse matches. Let me put this with color, yeah, some syntax color. So this HTTP request URI is automatically populated by the previous HTTP listener. So whenever I receive an HTTP listener call, I'm going to fill a lot of properties, and one of them is the URL. So if my URL matches version 0 provision and something else, then I redirect you to provision. So this is going to give me true as a return. This is if I want to push data, then I want to have push here with something else before. So there you go. And if it don't, then I get a false. In this case, because I have version 0 provision, this is going to return false. And the same applies for discovery. So we know that it's going to be using isprov. So if it is provisioning, it's going to go to this queue, to isprov queue. Sorry, you don't see it very well. Now you should see it better. And then it tells me this is just a connector. Because it's inside a group, I cannot connect it to the other processor because it's in a different group. So the NiFi provides this to connect processors that are in different groups. Only this. This is just a way of representing this. We go back to our API. We know that we went through the provision API. So what happens here? The first thing I need to know is it a status call or is a provision call? Does the guy want to check the status or does the guy want to check to do a provisioning? So the very first thing is I need to check in the URL if my URL is provision status or provision and yeah, I am not specifying Yeah, and it's not provision status. I'm not specifying the mode. The mode is taken care before that, after that. So this is one of my mistakes, I think. I should be controlling the provisioning mode there. But anyway, if I'm going to do a session, if I'm going to control the transaction, I redirect here. If it's a provision call, I start the provisioning workflow. And if you did and if you type something else that I don't understand, I give you a 404 because you are doing you are calling provision API, but with words that I don't understand. So anything else unmatched, I'm sending redirecting to 404. So now I know this is a provision call, right? So this is where I'm going to set all the Vistamar properties. So I'm going to set the Vistamar host, and there it is all of this that I'm going to change also after we've seen with Asen that it's much better to keep this in a text file. So Vistamar host, Vistamar mode. Vistamar mode, I don't know in advance. I need to parse it, right? So I know the mode is the substring after provision, right? So I can express this with a NiFi expression language. So I can manipulate the URL to extract the provisioning mode. Then the Vistamar password, Vistamar user, and Vistamar zone, which again I am getting from the URL. Then I'm going to execute a script, and this time I'm not using schemas. I'm going to run a script that I created to convert from JSON to XML. It is 10 lines only. And of course, this script is loaded into the NiFi workflow and is communicating with the NiFi workflow. So it is creating variables. In fact, you can see that this guy is outputting two things. One, if it's a success, if it's okay, then I'm going to keep working on it. But if I fail to convert this to XML, or I have a Python error or a system error, then I can go and tell you, hey, sorry, I had an error. And this is going to my log transaction and give you an error, okay? So there you go. We have our execute script that when it's success, it will put all the JSON structure into an XML, and the XML is going to be put into a file. Where? In Vistamart host. Okay. So we place our Vistamart, our XML file in Vistamart, and then this execute script is just calling Vistamart CLI. So with the variables, I don't know if you can you cannot see it here because the script is it's on a file. The script is just using the variables that we set before to call NiFi, to call Vistamart. So it will use the zone name, it will use other stuff. This guy here that is has a warning. The route and attribute is not yet in place. Okay, it's more for a future functionality. And then if I succeeded to call Vistamart, what I'm going to store is the result. Look, result log is one of the parameters that I'm giving in a line. Okay, is the last line that I'm giving, and then the status is a conditional assignment. If the last value that I have is a 0, meaning that the CLI call was successful, then provision successful. Otherwise, error during provisioning. Do I have to specify the error during provisioning? No, because that's why you have Vistamart console port. You know, or maybe yes, but I don't know. This we will have to determine up to which level of information we want to say. And there's another variable also to track the status, because maybe I'm doing. I'm going to show you this actually. I'm going to do many calls of my post. Okay, so I don't want lead. I'm gonna do device, and I'm going to do a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, more than it can be handled. Okay. There you go. So boom, boom, a lot. Okay, so all these are new. Now, of course, if I check the latest transaction result, the result is probably not even started, right? So it should be queued. And as you see, provisioning queued. So I am actually managing the status. So you can come back and say, yeah, and it's the status. And if I go now to my workflow, you will see that, hey, there you go, 7 are queuing here, because they are waiting for Vistamart to do the provisioning. Everything else works very fast, except Vistamart provisioning. So this is where we are putting our queue. And these guys are updating a variable to say that your flow file is queuing now. Now, when I am in here, then my transaction will change the status and will have transaction failed or transaction successful. And of course, I log it. So at any point, I log it into the session manager. So at any point, I can go back and check my session, how was the transaction, which is what I'm doing here. Oh, sorry, here. When I do my get to see the status of my provisioning, I am just asking for this flow file. So my NiFi is just going to its flow file storage management and getting the flow file and giving me, of course, I'm not showing you the entire flow file, okay? I am giving you only what you need to know. And this is pretty much it. And there you go. You see, we just provision a lot, and there's no concurrent provision. Vistamar is not going to complain that there is already a provisioning ongoing because I taught this guy to queue here. So this is the explanation of the Vista Foundation Kit API. And I think that now we have covered some good examples, some basic ones, some more complex ones. I don't know, maybe it's a nice time to, if you want to do another break, and after when we come, before we get started with Portal and Vista 360, if you want to play with another workflow, or you have any idea or question, etc., I'm happy to do something live in here. How can we, Hemal is asking, how can we get the VFK template? If in text file, please make sure to store encrypted or use encrypted VM password option to avoid the security issue. Excellent point. Yes, you are right. In fact, when it's an official processor, Hemal, when it's a official processor that handles a password, for example, this put SFTP, if this guy, if I view the configuration, if I have to put the password, here I'm using a private key, okay? But if I have to use the password, this password is not stored in clear. Because this is a specific property, a specific variable of the processor. So it is being handled automatically. However, my custom variable here, my custom variable of Vistamar password VM user, this is not encrypted. Okay, so this can be seen. So this would be something wrong. Of course, NiFi allows to give you the possibility to encrypt this. So I will find a way. But because, you know, I'm changing this philosophy, Hemal, of having the variables in here, I prefer to have them in a text file. I think the best is to have this encrypted text file and with MD5 or with some simple encryption, and then we load the parameters from there instead of storing them. In any case, I think that both possibilities are valid. We can either configure the processor to encrypt this when the workflow is exported, or we can just not put these variables into the workflow and write them into a file and make them load first.
Jorge, you don't have like a type of variables where you can say this is an IP, this is a password, or this is a string?
I'm not sure about this. Maybe, but not that I'm aware.
Okay.
I know you can tell it that it is a date or it is a string or it is a number. This I know how to tell him, but I'm not sure I can specify if it's an IP or something. Maybe, yeah. This I will need to investigate further on the expression language. In here on the documentation, NiFi docs, and there is expression language guide. This, okay. There's all the operations that you can do to number or escape CSVs. Well, there are lots of things in here, so maybe it is possible.
Yeah, I'm guessing if you have like a password type, it would be just encrypted.
Look, subject-less functions, IP address, so it can tell it's an IP.
So for troubleshooting, is there a high-level view of, especially when you have all these groups, right, and you have so many conditions, right? You can see the data for the events for each specific processor, but can you see the entire, from the beginning to the end, of what it actually traversed so that you could troubleshoot more easily, right?
Absolutely. You know, whenever a processor has a fault, it will one of these things will become red. Let's do it actually. Well, if we really need to prove it, let me know, and I will put an error in the script so it will turn red. But just to let you know, when a fault comes, whether because of the workflow execution or because there's a fault in your configuration, there will be a box turning red here. But not only here, and the container that has it will be a red there will be a red square, and in the container of the container you will find in here a red flag. And this one that you can see here is the number of operating system threads that are being used at this moment. So there's a lot you can track down both at fault level and at performance level.
Yeah, I'm not thinking fault. I'm thinking we just have some bad logic or bad input output somewhere, right? We don't want to go and visit every single processor within that group, right? We just want to see, okay, well, what did our request actually follow? Which path did it take, right?
So yeah, absolutely. So for this, the very first thing is this number, the in and out. If this, you know that a flow file came in and a flow file came out. So if, for example, you have this is success and the other guy, there must be a failure probably, right? There must be, yeah, there's no failure. So let's take this guy that has a failure and success. So we have success and we have failure. So you will see that a file when it came in here with 1 and it came out and there's no 1 in there. So you know that that it was successful. And if you also, you can put design your workflow in a way that all the failures go to one place and all the success go to the other place. So when you see that flow files are accumulating on the failure zone or on the failure side, you know that you are having issues. And when they go to the other side, you know they are being successful. It is more of how you create these things to make it understandable for you. You know, you can just put try to orient all of this, move the boxes to the left for what is successful and move the things to the right when it's not successful. And then just by looking, you don't have to go processor by processor. Just by looking at the big picture, you know, you can see how the workflow has gone. But there is not a thing like lights, you know, that tells you, look, this is the way it's flowing. This would be great to see actual the flow file like going, you know, in across the connection. But this we don't have.
Yeah, I'm thinking for support purposes, right? Especially when you're in production, you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to figure out what's going on with everything going on, right? So
yeah. But for this, I think that we are our best enemies in this, because if we configure the workflows in a way that is easy to track, then it's easy to track. But if you do it complexly and then you really have to go processor by processor, then it becomes very complex. So I think that the complexity is directly related to the way the workflow flows.
Hey, Jorge, I have a comment on that, because I'm thinking what Hemmel's talking about is ability to troubleshoot without looking at the GUI. And I remember when we ran our testing, the transaction ID was a log file.
Yeah.
And does that?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Yes, it's a good point. You know, that's another alternative. You see, guys, it's NiFi is so extensive that it's difficult to really have a single answer for everything. So if I go to my bin, I need to go my bin info vista stuff. Yeah, NiFi info vista. I'm going to show you. Oh no, it's not in this box. Sorry. So I'm going to show you what Dennis is talking about, because I am actually storing NiFi info vista. There you go. And then we have our log. Yeah. There you go. Yes. So we can actually see the complete flow file attributes. So I can go here and see that the HTTP URL that was used, it's this. Let me maximize this. So you can actually read it. There you go. So, okay, this is not where I wanted it to be. Just a sec. Sorry, guys, I know it's not very, there you go. And I think that now it will work. Excellent. So in here, sorry, it's a bit cluttered, okay, because it's the JSON with no carrier to return, but you can clearly see the values, right? You see the HTTP URI, you see the context identifier. All of these are NiFi variables, but also we can see our own variables. So if we go here, we can see, I cannot hover the mouse, but on the fourth line starting from below, we can see the Vistamar user, the ID repo operator, or we can see Vistamar zone. We can see, you see, you get a glimpse of all the attributes. So if you can figure out an attribute, a variable that can help you out troubleshooting, like for example, the status. You see this status at the bottom. The very final variable is status provision successful. So if you can help you to troubleshoot a workflow by setting a status variable, just set it. And then as you just open the flow file and check what is the value of the variable, and it's easier for you to track it down.
Hey, Mark, are you looking like similar approach that we have in Cockpit when you run workflows, and then you can see where it fails by having like a red lights, and then, you know, in the event, right?
Precisely. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about with the red square. You see that this thing that let me this thing that I'm talking about, when you have a red flag in here, let me actually, I think we can sort of try to generate it. Okay, I don't want to invest a lot, but yeah, you will have a clear alarm that says, yeah, something failed here. And of course, you can hover your mouse to see more. Maybe if it was something in your scripting, it will tell you the Python error or the language error. So yeah, you do have a way of knowing what went wrong. I should have prepared something to troubleshoot what is wrong to make my point. But anyway, I think that with the examples you have, you are going to face a lot of errors. You yourselves are going to, in the beginning, understand how to troubleshoot.
Jorge, one question. Have you done any examples with single sign-on authentication or pushing, specific data from the VistaMart to a widget on a business portal?
So for the second one, we don't have. But for the earlier one, yes, we have a Google OAuth 2, so we are authenticating using OAuth. So if you know OAuth, it's quite a complex protocol to ensure that a mobile phone, for example, or somebody can authenticate on your behalf. So that's why you don't have to put your password every time in your Facebook application or your WhatsApp application or whatever, because it's using OAuth 2. Okay, so let's say that OAuth is a way of handling the authentication on your behalf. You are authorizing me to authorizing an application, and this is the other box, right, that Google shows or Facebook shows. Are you allowing this app to use Facebook? So it is a way of handling credentials on your behalf. So all of this is done. It is a bit complex, but all of this, the token management and handling Google response, all of this is done. So potentially, when it comes to authenticating ourselves, yes, in any language, in any authentication mechanism, it can be HTTP, Apache basic authentication. It can be OAuth 2. It can be SAML. It can be whatever you can imagine. It can be even something non-standard, because as long as it is a socket and there is text exchange, NiFi can cope with it. Mm-hmm. For some of the things, for some of the authentication mechanism, maybe it's straightforward, meaning that there is a NiFi processor specifically for that, or for others, maybe you have to put some more logic around. But possible is possible. And then about streaming, that we would have to think about it. But from a high-level perspective, it would work definitely, because with NiFi you can extract data from VistaMart and you can put it in a data bus. And with NiFi you can also authenticate with any mechanism. So potentially, I say absolutely yes. Now I don't want to commit before proving it.
No, we can talk more specifically, because there is a huge request from Bell Canada.
I know. I remember the embedding InfoVista information in their portal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, I think there are some things we could do. We would have to understand what the kind of data they accept and so on, but in my opinion, for sure. Great. So Matt, I don't know, but this time it's actually the time for the break, right? This time it's not 1 hour before.
That's right. That's right. So if you want to take a break now, I don't know, I'll be back at about 5 to the top of the hour, just to kind of get acclimated again. I guess we'll start promptly at 11, and then we can continue on. Any questions here, but primarily I think we're going to jump over to Portal.
Very well.
Great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. See you in a bit, guys. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we're coming to the last part of this morning, and this is the final presentation. Now we are switching the topic completely. So we are now going to talk only about Vista Portal and Vista 360 6.0. So the agenda for this, it's about recap a little bit and focusing, as Matt was saying in the beginning, focus on the end, on the Vista 360 dynamic properties. Now, I just want to do a fast recap in case somebody in the room is not aware of the new functionalities that are available since Vista Portal 5.1, and very quickly go over them, or unless, of course, you want to stop and have some questions about the things I'm going to show you. So some pages without Object Navigator, drill down to displayed and cacti killer stuff. Then we have the new radar graphs that can be used with, for example, it can be used with anything. But one of the things that can be really interesting to display in a radar graph is Pearson factor results, for example, which is one of the new operators that come with Vistamar 6. Then a small recap as well, especially to know a little bit where you are. I would like to know what is your current abilities of Vista 360 auto linking, especially with the new ID properties capabilities. Sorry. And I also have a Vista Discovery 5.1 and Network Parrot to create those links for you. So maybe we can spend 5 minutes to make sure that we are all on the same page. And finally, the idea is that we spend the majority of the session with the Vista 360 dynamic dashboards, and I have a couple of documents for you that may be useful. So the first one, starting with Object Navigate with pages that doesn't have Object Navigator. Are you guys doing this today? Is this something that you are familiar with? Are you using the drill down to display functionalities? Are you using a cacti killer in the sense that you can display lots of graphs in the same page without drill down? Is it something that you are doing today and that your customers are appreciating?
Yeah, we've done that at AT&T.
Okay, very well. Irene, Bell Canada is complaining about using Object Navigator too much, or would they like to see more graphs in the same page without opening a new tab or things like this?
You know what, Jorge? She just stepped out.
Okay.
I'll
no problem, really. Just checking. I know.
Rephrase the question.
I know. Okay, no problem. I know Asen probably taught me this, so I'm not even asking. Dennis just spoke. Aurelio, maybe are you familiar with these guys? I don't know if I don't know. Maybe it's my impression only, but I was under the impression that the people at AT&T Mexico don't like to do a lot of clicks, right? They just want to go to the data straight away, and they don't like to go in expanding stuff to select what they want.
Yeah, but recently they are asking some functionalities like this. So some drill down dashboards for basically for capacity reports.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes, yeah, but definitely yes.
There was a question from Hi.
Hi, Irene. Yeah, very quick question, actually. You know, we're going over the new functionalities of Vista 360 and Vista Portal on 6.0. Just wanted to make sure, touching base on you guys, and one of the questions was if Bell Canada, are they complaining that they have to do a lot of clicks with the Object Navigator and this kind of stuff? I mean, we are now offering, we now have the capability of offering pages that don't have Object Navigator at all. You know, for those engineers, for those end users that don't care at all about InfoVista or performance management, and they just want to see if their things are okay or not okay, you know, and they don't want to expand the Object Navigator until they find what they want. They just want to, you know, have as they land on the page, they want to see some information and maybe click on some of the information to interact, but not a lot of clicks. And the same for cacti killer. You know, some end users are very used to cacti. They want to all the time just scroll down and see a lot of graphs and keep scrolling, and they don't like that they have to go to a different page with Vista Portal, and now we can do it in the same page. So mostly these two factors. Is Bell Canada maybe interested?
Yeah, actually Bell Canada has put the Vista 360 project on the back burner just because they don't believe that they will have a good mechanism just to deploy it, and especially because there is huge updates on the configuration and the map, so they cannot build the map manually. They want to have a workflow that everything is updated as we're doing discovery from the main tool and all of that. So that's one of the things that we need to work with them if we want to see this project going, because this is a huge opportunity, a lot of devices. And the other issue, it is not so much of the this one is going to take care of their concern of the views, because they want the views to be automatically created and also be parameterized, so they don't have to just go there and remove a device if this device is not anymore
right.
And the other thing that they are going, so the navigation on the Vista 360 itself, it's not the big issue. The big issue it is the language, because we cannot change the languages. And
True.
by law, they have to have in French and English, because if you don't provide the French, actually the people in Quebec can refuse to work, believe it or not. And the other thing is that the feel and the look is not customizable. So this is the three issues that we need to address for them to say yes, we go forward with that. They like it. They like it a lot. It is the problem that there is not a path to just put it in the operation.
Fully integrated. Yeah. Okay, so for the language and the customization, I don't have a lot for the customization. Now with the flashless, you will see that it feels much more integrated. That will be up to you to decide. But for the automatic dashboards, I have a lot to say. Okay, so this is the last point that I want to cover in the agenda. So let me see if this can address the automatic dashboard creation that maybe Bell Canada is after. And okay, so as I said, let me very quickly go with the first things that maybe they are new and you are not always working with them, just to give you a glimpse, and then we jump to the more, let's say, more interesting stuff. So I have my Chrome here, and of course this will have expired. So yeah, give me a second, and there we go. So we are again in the same demo platform. We have created a set of pages that can be interesting for the end user to try and work without Object Navigator, and to also show the new functionalities that are not available in bin pages. Okay. So for this I have custom examples, and yeah. First one, extremely simple, okay? Just a landing page for people, as I say, that are not really looking for a lot of information but are not looking for a lot of clicks either. Okay, so first we have an aggregated perspective of the traffic of my interfaces, and now there's no Object Navigator at all, but I can still debug and troubleshoot. So for instance, if I want to troubleshoot this guy, automatically I get my traffic in and out on top, and on below I get some more, the volume, the errors, and I can, as usually, work only with the errors, or work without the errors, or the opposite, only with the errors, or whatever. So very, very straightforward, nothing too complicated, very simple, but without Object Navigator, you know, this can help a lot for people that they need to interact with maybe 10 applications per day, and they don't want to go into the details of how to use InfoVista. And inside the same page, if instead of clicking on a specific value, I click on the overall, then I automatically get also all the cacti look like. The cacti look like graphs. Okay, so people that are used to cacti, they can just keep on going down. And the same applies to the graph on demand. Now, instead of one instance with all the indicators, we analyze all the instances, indicator per indicator. So without Object Navigator and simple graph, people can have access to the most relevant KPIs, even with multiple instances. This is for the cacti killer. Another example of the same stuff, but now with further time evolution, you know, because in here we were seeing only 24 hours, but sometimes you want to go farther and say, okay, yeah, I can see, for example, this one, I can see this 24 hours, but how about the month? Okay, so now the month is here below, and I can see the performance around the month. I can also create my zoom and then go a little bit lower. I think everything here is actually 0. And even longer, I have a daily granularity to reach May. Okay, so in this case, we actually have, oops, no, the zoom is it's not a good idea. So again, without Object Navigator, we can go and extend the window time. We can even click on one of the values in here, and automatically the guy below is also going to update. So you have control of the page without using the Object Navigator, and you still get drill downs and this kind of functionalities without jumping to a different page. So we find that some departments of our customers find these pages very much more interesting because they don't have to learn how to use it. And then, oh yeah, so this is about Cacti Killer and Object Navigator less. And now I'm going to show you a little bit of the radar. So in this place, we are having a 2 hierarchical layer perspective. So we are going to be looking at the services, but also at the members of the service. Okay. So I can see the radar of the service if I maximize this. Yeah. Where's my radar here? So if I maximize this, I can see where my services are positioned in terms of response time of the SLA. So I can see that, okay, this guy is performing very bad, the light blue, because it is its shape is leaning towards more than 100 and more than 200%. So clearly this is not a good service. However, the other guy, this guy that is a little bit more red, Dharma Initiative Voice, it seems that it's much better. It's in pretty center, but deviating into 0 and 5%. So it's just a different way of looking at indicators. And for this, we are offering really nothing new, just a different representation. Of course, again, even if we have our object navigator, we don't need it to pilot the page. We can just click on one of the instances and see how are the services indicators performing, what is the max traffic, how is the traffic flowing outside the site or into the site. We can also try and compare multiple stuff, so multiple services can be displayed. And now, when we, this is for the first level of aggregation, for the upper level at service level, but then if we enter the services and we saw, for example, that the blue one, A8 VPN, is not performing very good, we can see, we can have a look into how the interfaces are placed in the radar. So, and in this case, because it's a demo page, where now we are not addressing the response time. Now we are addressing how the service is being used, who is carrying the volume of this service, right? So we can clearly see that there are 3 interfaces with very little traffic, just some bytes per second, some 42 bytes per second, while the other guys are actually having kilobytes per second and are really carrying the traffic. I can, at any point, click on the values to drill down and see the specific interface performance across time. But I can also go and drill down further. So I can see how is my interface behaving across time, because now I see there's a lot of volume. But is this volume constant throughout the day? So this is what this radar is going to give us. Now we are splitting the values across several days, and we see that this interface is performing only on specific sections of the day, not on these days. You see very clearly it leans towards. And we also see the lunchtime, how it says less used during lunchtime. And okay, so just with the graph, you have a completely different perspective of your indicator behavior. And now if we go back to our services and the way they are performing, and if we say, yeah, you know, previously in the previous graph we only have 2 indicators, so it's pretty easy to click on the right value. But sometimes here maybe the value is behind another area, so we cannot really click it. So that's why we have a table here. And then when you click to compare everything, then yeah, you open a new page, but you will have a completely different perspective. So now we are comparing service per service. We are comparing how they are distributed, okay? And we can do the opposite. We can do all the services together, but percentage per percentage. So now we see that all the interfaces that are between the 0 and 50, all the interfaces that are between 50 and 100, all the interfaces between, etc. So we see that the more area we have covered is where the services are more present in this kind of values. So automatically with the shape and colors, you can spot who are the bad guys or good guys on your indicator behavior. So that's about radar. Then I also wanted to create a Pearson factor. This I don't need it anymore. I also wanted to create a Pearson factor for you, but Pearson factor is not a lot straightforward, and unfortunately I'm more busy than I would like to. But I have this. Yeah, it's here. Yeah, here you go. Let me place it here. This is the very first radar and with Pearson factor that we created. Of course, you see it's super cluttered. This is not the objective. It's because they were doing it with radio cells. Now instead of radio cells, they are using radio provinces. So they are going 3 steps up in the aggregation, and they have, of course, the 10th part of instances. So you actually see something very clear. And with Pearson factor, you know, the Pearson factor is about when you have a group KPI, identifying who is more responsible for this value, who is influencing my group value most. Okay, so this is what you see in the Pearson factor. So you see that the guys that are more closer to the edge are those guys that are influencing more. In this case of radio, they are probably those with higher denominators. So because they have more attempts, they probably influence more with their final value, right? Sorry, I don't have a nice one with proper readable values, but you can make yourself an idea. Pearson factor is excellent to identify the guilty guys, because this is not a top end where you can say who are the interfaces with most errors. No, I want to know who are the interfaces contributing more. So the concept is completely different. This can only be done with Pearson factor. Whatever top end we do is not relevant enough, because maybe we have an interface that is having a 99% of errors, but it's only using 10 kilobytes of information. So yeah, I'm just losing 10 kilobytes. I mean, if its information is not crucial, I don't care. But if the same interface is carrying 1 gigabyte per second, then it's another story if it has 90% of errors, right? So this is what the Pearson factor can uncover for our customers, to identify if a bad value is really influencing, is really affecting my global SLA. Okay, so this is for the previous stuff. We've gone through the radar. Yeah, very quickly, I also want to go through the Vista 360 links. So auto linking. First of all, are you guys familiar that since Vista Portal 5.1 and Bean 5.3, we have out-of-the-box auto linking, meaning that we have the properties there to be linked, and we also have the ID system. Instead of the previous system that was comparing two string values and two string values in different instances, now we have the ID property. So you put this ID value in an interface pointing to the interface that is connected to, and then they are linked. The question here is, are you all familiar with the ID properties linking?
I would say just for the wider audience, if you can give a quick overview.
Sure. So previously, let me go to Vistamar, right? This is probably when we're going to prove our point better. So previously on Vistamar, let me reload this. Yeah. Previously on Vistamar, when we wanted to do an automatic linking, what we had to do is to create a new property that was now out of the box property in Bean, and then the value of this property, for example, let's say customer, this value backbone needed to be present on the interface that is connecting to. So let's say that this interface that is highlighted is connected to the two rows below, to this one. Then this interface should have the same value here, should have backbone, which is the case. So in this case, these two interfaces would be connected because they have the same value. Now, this requires a lot of complexity. If you start having multiple link types, then you start requiring more properties, and then it gets more complex, because what happens when two interfaces have the same value but they are not linked together? It is maybe that you haven't chosen the right value, or your value is not unique enough. And what happens if you want to have two linking styles, one that links to the basic and one that links to the proxy? Then you the basic also need to hold the same property value in order to be linked. So as you try to scale with this format, it becomes very complex, because you actually need to compare two property values, which sometimes is not obvious. So after Vista Portal and Vista 360 5.1, this has been drastically simplified. And now what we can use in Vista 360 is any ID property that we want. So we don't depend on the other side of the interface to analyze what is the destination, to see if it's right or not. We will just have an ID property here, which we can create. It can be custom ID property that will be pointing to the target interface. So in fact, and then Bean 5.3 and Bean 5.4 as well, of course, have introduced these ID properties by default. So now we have the level 3 destination and the level 2 destination. This doesn't mean that it will be all that we need, because again, we may want to link to an interface or link to a device, and also we may want to link lag members and lag interfaces, aggregated LANs. Or maybe we want to design also IP SLA. So there are many link types that we may want, but at least we have a base point that is already wrapped into the official solution, which is Bean, and also the technology is there in Vista 360 to use the ID property. So now, instead of taking care of the other side of the interface as well, we just set our ID destination here, and then in Vista 360 they will be connected. So automatically, this means that we need half of the links, because as long as we have half of the interfaces with the other side configured, then the other side, we don't need to configure it, because it will be already configured, okay? This doesn't mean that you always have to aim to have only half populated, because this is difficult to control. How do you split the network in half, ensuring that all the one side connections are in one hand and all the other side connections are in the other hand? This usually is not obvious, but take it into account that you don't need 100% of this populated to have 100% of auto-linking. This is more or less the point that I would like to make. So this is maybe if you have never heard about this, one of the questions could be, Jorge, if you are talking about Vista 360, why the hell are we in Vistamart? So we are in Vistamart because I want to show you that setting the ID properties here, we need to have the model in Vistamart before we can explain Vista 360 how to use it. So once we have all our ID properties populated, then we can go to our Vista 360, and on our model, we can decide what is, we can explain to Vista 360 what is our property and how do they link together, okay? And this, ideally follow the documentation, because I don't want to spend a lot of time with the syntax, unless you guys are having issue with the syntax, huh? But I don't want to spend a lot making the difference between the previous syntax, and the new syntax. Just to let you know that all previous development that you had are compatible. So all previous string-to-string comparison or property-to-property comparison are still valid, are still working perfectly. Now you can keep on enhancing your linking system, your linking model with the new functionalities, with the ID properties, which is simpler and, in my opinion, cleaner and more efficient. Now, about the results. You know, most of the times we think about auto-linking, about putting a LAN interface with the right LAN interface. But there is much more than interfaces to be linked. And one of the examples I want to show here is a private cloud. Okay, this is a private cloud. This is the host, and these are all small Linux hosts. This is not auto-linked. Okay, let's assume that these links were manually created, and this is the way but in a cloud, there's not only the networking. There's much more. There's also all the disks, how they are being accumulated, etc. So let's go and select all the file systems. Yeah, oops, sorry. File system, yeah. And we select them all. Let's wrap them all in here. There you go. So we have all of our file systems there, and now it looks more like a private cloud, right? We have the compute node, we have the virtual host, and we have the networking, and we have also the storage. And there's some networking missing, right? Because all the virtual machines don't have anything. So when I'm trying to link, we can link the file systems, and we can link the LAN interfaces. I'm going to select them all, then then discover the links, select all the links, and create the links. And now we give it some nice perspective. The organic algorithm, you all know it's the best. I strongly recommend it. Because it will put by itself, it puts the compute host in the center, so it is much better than that. Now, the very first thing I want to say is that here we're using dummy instances, because how do you link a file system to a server? There's no interface. This is not an interface. So this is, in reality, is a dummy instance. If you see the name, it's just the name of the parent with a keyword fslink. So we are using this only for Vista 360 representation. But this can be applied to anything else. Imagine you can link logical services. You can link a service to another service. You can link customers to customers. You can link sites to sites. And you can use dummy instances for that. It doesn't need to be an interface. It can. What we want is representation here. We want to know what is linked to that. What happens if this host fails? Then it means that all of these file systems are going to be useless, down, or whatever. So at least I have a view of the impact. If we extrapolate this example to, for example, a transmission network that is geographically distributed, this is very important for the NOC team to know if this falls, how many radio links am I missing? Okay, if I lose this part of the transmission, if you see this as a transmission router, and many other possibilities. So in the end, ideally, when we click on auto-linking, we should have tons of choices, because it is not only router to router, there is also router to switch. There is router to firewall, there is firewall to switch, and all of these combinations need to be populated here. So fortunately, now with the ID properties, this is much more simplified in terms of our Vista SMR property filling, but it doesn't mean that it becomes easier on the Vista 360 model definition. Because we have to take advantage of these functionalities, of these ID properties, to enrich further our Vista 360. So don't think about interfaces and traffic to link. Don't think only about round trip time or jitter. You have to think about anything that belongs to something and that has a relationship with something should be linked in Vista 360. The next question is, maybe, is this link, should this link have an arrow? Maybe not. Should this link have a color? Probably not. There's nothing to measure here. It should be maybe the data bus, no, between the file system and the virtual machine. But they still need to be together, especially if we're going to be applying our mathematical algorithms to link them. They need to make sense somehow. So this can only happen. Okay, the graph is not a tree. This can only happen if we have if we think about auto-linking as a generic stuff. We have to think about auto-linking as if we knew nothing about networking. The way the customer understands the network is the way we have to represent it in Vista 360. The limitation shouldn't be, is it an interface, is it a proxy? No, it can be anything. So for some things, we're going to be linking with actual instances, and for some others, each time we create an instance, I created this with Vista Discovery, in fact, for each file system that is discovered, the link is automatically created. Only with mapping file you can do this. So an integration mode. So it's not that difficult, but you have to keep in mind the model that you want to build. And with mobile networks, for example, also the amount of interfaces is huge. It can be a radio interface. It can be we can be binding a mini link with with a node B, or we can be linking maybe a physical interface that then becomes radio for a while, and after it crosses the radio link, it becomes LAN based again. So all of this needs to be represented differently, especially when we want to address end-to-end models. So in one hand, I want to highlight the point I want to make is that ID properties are excellent for auto-linking. This will make your life easier. But now that we have this, is the moment to get more complex on the auto-linking itself. So don't limit yourself to link LAN interfaces. Try to link everything.
Just two quick questions on the property. For the property ID, do we just reference the tag of the instance?
Precisely. Yes. Yes.
And then a follow-up, if we have two instances that are actually cross-referencing each other, sort of like the old model where we had to have two instances in the same property match, will they create a bidirectional interface or linkage, or will it be two separate interfaces?
No, it will be, yeah. So in your case, when both have the ID property populated, it will be cross, right? One ID property is going to be pointing to the other side, and the other side's ID property is going to point to the initial side, right? So it's this is duplicated information, and it's simply more information than what is needed. Now you're going to get the same picture of two interfaces linking together with only one ID property set, because if one interface is pointing to the other interface, I don't need to know what's the content of the other interface because I know they are linked together. So it's not going to look for verification on the other side of the interface. If one interface says, I am linked to this interface, it's not going to look into the other interface. So your model is not going to be corrupted. And one more thing, and if you add extra information, if you populate both ID properties, then no problem, it's still going to be fine.
Yeah, but then I suppose you lose the bidirectional sense of each interface, right?
No, because what you are pointing is an interface, it's not a basic. So as long as you are pointing an interface, Vista 360 is smart enough, as long as you are pointing a proxy. As I said, I want to abstract of the concept of interface. As long as the ID property is pointing a proxy, you're going to get the two sides arrow.
Okay.
Because it's another proxy. Now, if your ID property is pointing to a basic, then you are going to have only one arrow.
Right.
That's the only difference.
I got you.
So now it's easier to create these double links, these double arrow links, because you only need to populate one ID property. Of course, it's difficult to as I said, to populate the right 50%. So you are never going to end up populating only 50% of the interfaces. But knowing this can allow you to have a 100% linked model with not 100% of populated properties.
I have two questions there. Okay,
yeah.
Interfaces and devices, I can understand how it works, and it's very helpful. If you have elements like IPSLAs, because a lot of, which actually we're talking about a large number of IP SLAs, but now it's not going from device A to B, it's going end to end. Or other structures that you might have in some virtual components, so you might have, in order to create an end-to-end link, I suppose same rules
let me show you.
In there, right?
Sorry?
The same rules that you described here, you can just construct something like that, right?
Exactly. And I'm going to show you a proof of concept, actually.
Okay. And the second question on that is that in the maps that you create for Vista 360, you could put a parameter there in the automatic mapping and really filter by customer, for example?
Yeah, of course, it could be.
Yeah.
So an example of the IP, of how to represent, for example, IP-SLA, because as you say, IP-SLA usually is measuring a service itself. Maybe it goes from the beginning of the service and up to the end, and then it's checking the jitter of the response time. So something like this, right? The red one. So we can have IP-SLA to another IP-SLA in case both have a probe, but the most used, the most common one is going to be only one IP-SLA reaching the other side of the service, and in the middle of the service components itself. So you can go end to end and measure all the IP-SLA and get the response time, the RTT, the jitter, whatever you are measuring in your probe, you can represent it. Now, I don't like this representation because I don't see the difference between an IP-SLA and a regular interface. So for me, this should be dotted or dashed. Or dotted dash, you know, there's also this type in Vista 360. Each type should try to use a different type of arrow. But the concept, and this is where I again recommend to forget about your network knowledge, because you are talking about an IP-SLA, you are talking about the network service. No. I just want to connect from this initial router to this end router. I want to have a line that show me these indicators that are the jitter and the response time. So this is easier to understand. Then I know that for this IP-SLA, which is an instance in Vistamart, I just need to include on the ID property the tag of this router, the router below, and automatically Vista 360 will create the link and will create a link from this guy because it's the parent to this guy because it's the destination written in the ID property. Make sense?
Perfect sense, and that's exactly what was missing before, because it was difficult to do this association, because IP-SLA typically it is associated with the service, it's not associated with the device. But at the same time, you want to see the endpoint. Now, let me ask you another question, because I have been asked that if a customer, let's say, has two different services, and it happens a lot. So in that case, you could abstract them like two boxes and they're high, and then you can click in each one of them and getting, you know, a detailed view as you get here per service.
Right. In fact, this is what the guys. There are there are many approaches for this. One is the one that you just said, so we can have a dashboard and then drill down to other dashboards. Another possibility is to have separate dashboards per service. And then you present, for example, a dashboard here where the services are listed. You see it now, I'm hovering the mouse over services. And then when you click, for example, the dashboard gets updated. And this is what I'm going to show you now. And another possibility would be you have logical instances like the service instance itself, the other services, like these guys. This is a service and this is a service. They are connected together, and you can connect them with the members of group. It doesn't need to be a proxy. So you can actually connect service to service. And if you have an IP-SLA probe that is going from a router to another router, but you don't want to see the routers, you can still put it here as long as the IP-SLA probe is a member of this service. If it's a member of any of the two services, then on the destination of the probe, we can write the service name instead of the router name. And then when we go to Vista 360, it automatically does the auto-linking for us. Of course, this is absurd. If you know the network, you know that the probe belongs to a router. But this is why I say forget about what you know about the networks, because the IP-SLA probe, from a logical perspective, should go out of the service, should belong to the service, because what you are measuring is the service response time.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So now let me jump into that. So this is just the latest thing. In order to create the auto links, of course, I am assuming that you guys have all the necessary information to create this auto linking and that you are able to see what is the other side of the interface. And I am just saying, guys, just populate it into an ID property. But I am forgetting about the most complex stuff, which is finding out what is the other side of the interface. So ideally for this, the best way and the most straightforward and the least work for you is to use customer inventory. If customer has the other side of the interface in their inventory, just output a CSV file, 3 columns, interface, parent, and destination interface. And with this, you cook your XML and you provision this into Vistamart. Boom, you have your auto linking at Vistamart level. Now, very few customers, this is the reality, have the ability to provide this kind of information. So what are the tools that we have today? And for this, I created a very small presentation for a few days ago. I'm not going to go over all of it. There's no point. This is what we are looking at. All right. Oh, now you can see better. You see this in here, like 2,000 instances, and I think around 50,000 links. So imagine the size of this dashboard, and it works. Not perfectly. It's a little slow, but it works. This is what I mean with having lots of types. Okay, depending, you have to a lag interface, to a lag sub interface, to LAN switches, to load balancer. Everything should be able to be represented. And see, this is just a glimpse of it. There is much more up and much more down. Some other stuff, you know, this is transmission network that we are able to represent. And now, what are the tools you have? So, I don't know if you know that our Vista Discovery tool is just a wrapper of an existing tool that is called Network Ferret. Network Ferret is a product from a one-man company, and he's developing this for other companies. This product, Network Ferret itself, is very difficult to handle. It's designed for other developers to wrap it around, to use it as their engine. So we have the license for Network Ferret. We can use it standalone or we can use it embedded. For the embedded, our tool is called Vista Discovery. So Vista Discovery is nothing but a wrapper of Network Ferret. Okay. So Network Ferret is the guy that is able to discover the network as we do with Vista Discovery today, and then Vista Discovery does the exercise of putting this into an XML file, and we have all the functionalities of the mapping to get the output from Network Ferret and map it properly into the XML, right? So Network Ferret itself can be used standalone to discover the links. And it is what we've been using up to Vista Discovery 5.0 because Vista Discovery 5.0 was using Network Ferret for instance discovery only, but never for linking. Now, since Vista Discovery 5.1, we first of all, Vista Discovery 5.1 has upgraded its internal version of Network Ferret, so now it will be Network Ferret 7.1, which is much better than the previous, and among other things, is faster. But the great star of Vista Discovery 5.1 is that it is using Network Ferret's capabilities to discover those links. So if you configure your Vista Discovery client properly, most of your interfaces ID properties are going to get populated. If the network, because whatever reason, because you know, let me explain this in here, you will see it better. What we use for level 3 discovery and for level 2 is below, but these are the protocols that Network Ferret supports, okay, and the discovery strategies. So if, especially CDP, Cisco, it's working like 100% of the times perfect. But we are also making it work with Huawei and Juniper. So if one of these protocols is supported by the device and there is SNMP information about it visible, that is accessible, then we're going to discover this link. Now, sometimes it may happen that Vista Discovery 5.1 is not good enough to discover all the links. So you can use Network Ferret standalone with further configuration to enhance its link discovery capabilities and finalize those bits that you are having. So of course, Vista Discovery 5.1 is evolving, and as every hotfix comes, it is a little bit more experienced and better into creating those links. But I would say that average, we are going to be discovering 80 to 90% of the links with Vista Discovery 5.1. The remaining 20 or 10%, you have to fill it either with Network Ferret, with customer information, or simply never fill it because it is super protected. The firewall, there are firewalls in the middle. We cannot see a lot of information, and simply we cannot do anything else. So this has also to be accepted. So those are the tools you have, guys, to create populate those properties and then put everything in Vista 360. If you ever want to get your hands into Network Ferret raw, don't hesitate. Ping me and I will show you. Okay. Some people are already doing it themselves. So Florin Monsalvi knows. Bin Nguyen from Asia also is also familiar on launching it standalone, and more as we keep using it, people is becoming familiar. So you can ping any one of us to when you if you are willing to use it. And yeah, we have already seen what we can achieve, and that's it. So all of this to cover auto linking, and finally the variables. Okay, so for the variables, I'm going to start with the simplest example.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of features we can do directly on standalone network ferret versus our Vista Discovery? There are additional feature we can perform or configure.
Okay, you can do a simpler discovery. So for example, if you want to discover only IP address and maybe one or two more properties, Vista Discovery is going to take a lot. But you can configure network ferret internally to discover less and be faster, and you know to if you want to do something like that. But basically, it's difficult to do something with network ferret that cannot be done with Vista Discovery. The only thing where we find more flexibility is the auto linking, and this will improve as Vista Discovery improves. But for the other things, it's been so many years working network ferret and Vista Discovery that Vista Discovery, when it comes to discovery, it is network ferret. There's no difference.
Right. Well, I understand that Vista Discovery will be a little bit behind in terms of features.
It's just adding overhead. It's just adding overhead, and the fact that you in the standalone mode you can reduce the minimum configuration, the minimum operations to make faster discoveries. Of course, with less enriched data.
And in terms of license, you know, if we want to use that,
you are free. You guys, as long as you are InfoVista employees, you are free to use network ferret in any version, in any way.
No, but in terms of project on customer side, can we use it directly?
Yes. Network ferret is ours to be used.
So
I mean, we sell it to we sell it to customers and we name it Vista Discovery, but we are paying the guy, the network ferret author, has given us network ferret to make money with it. So we can use Vista Discovery on top of it, or we can use network ferret alone. And network ferret is ours to be used.
Jorge?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Phil. So if we have customers that want to run their own network ferret, are we allowed to set that up for them and they're allowed to use it themselves?
Okay, this is where we are becoming tricky. If the end user has the license for network ferret and they are going to pay you as a consultant, as professional services to integrate it, then yes, I don't see any problem at all. Now, if they are providing network ferret and they don't have the license for network ferret and they want you to help, I see some conflicts there. The other possibility, Bill, is that you give them our network ferret and then we use it. I mean, we can deliver it just like we deliver Vista Discovery. It's a part of our products.
So if the customer has the Vista Discovery, can just really substitute that with something like or combine it with the ferret. So if they want the additional capability for the auto link.
Absolutely. This is exactly what some of our customers are doing today to fill this 10% of the interfaces that are not linked.
Okay, I guess that's what I was trying to ask was,
sorry.
So if our customers own our product, we can deliver network ferret directly as part of our product suite and help them to set up the auto links. I have several customers that want to do the auto linking now that have
So if they don't have Vista Discovery 5.1, of course, they are not going to be able to do it with Vista Discovery and still want to do it now, then network ferret is the right way.
Right, and we can deliver network ferret to them.
Yes. But you put it in place. I mean, network ferret is not a friendly tool at all. Huh? It's either you put it in place. I don't think the customers are going to put it in place. No way. Because you
have 5.1. So does 5.1 have all the discovery functionality? I thought you said even 5.1 does not have everything.
Correct.
That does direct.
Yeah. So guys, any auto linking project that you think you want to get your hands on, ping me, and we will see what is the best way to go. Okay, and now I wanted to show, yes, routers dashboard. So now I'm closing the auto linking part. Okay, I am more than happy to assist you or to provide advice or feedback on auto linking. I think it's a great feature. I think our customers are loving it, and I think it has a lot of potential. So I'm happy to get involved. Of course, you know our product management availability is limited, but I remain happy to try and engage. So what are we seeing here? Okay, our classic object navigator less platform, and this is the most basic example. You will say it's very poor, and you will be right, but this is the best way to understand it, okay? And then we go to a real production example. So here, this dashboard is empty. In fact, if I try to configure it, there is no URL. There's nothing defined, okay? So how is it gonna work? So in the report display today, in the report display today, we have, let me jump to it. Either the new report display on 6.0 or the old report display on 5.1 has it as well, okay? So I'm gonna load one just to have something that is pre-configured very, very quickly. And on the drill downs, now we have another type of drill down that is called to URL. And in fact, this guy has it. So if we go to the drill downs URL, there you go. So in this URL, we are calling our Vista 360. Okay, nothing new up to now. We are calling a specific dashboard, which are the WID. Okay, this is fine. And then in here, this after this and this is the new stuff. So let me put it separately in a notepad. Yeah. So if I put this in here, sorry about the other mess. Okay, don't look at that. We can see that this ampersand is just the HTTP connector to pass parameters via GET, so we don't care about that. And we have that we are setting variable router to instance ID. Okay. So this is done, don't forget, at the report level, report template level. So it means that each time I am clicking on these guys, I am creating a URL. So if I call this now, okay, sorry, I'm on Firefox. I need the Chrome one. Just give me a second. Bear with me. Yeah, Chrome. Is this still working? No. Yeah. Okay. Just a second, please. Yeah, there we go. Routers dashboard. So, yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for waiting. If I click on one of them, then it is calling Vista 360, a specific dashboard. And oops, it's removing the content and it's putting only the router that I called, which is the variable that we just set on the report template. So I am calling the dashboard with a, with a variable. And this is the secret for any custom dashboard that you may want. So for example, let's say that instead of routers here, we have sites. So I could, for example, when I pass the URL, pass the site, and then on Vista 360 dashboard, create a query that places all the routers that belong to this specific site, and then do the auto linking on top. So we can have dynamically generated dashboards for each site that are updated on the fly. So meaning that what Irene was saying, if an element disappeared, it is built on the fly, so it won't appear anymore. So we are generating Vista 360 dashboards on the fly that are being populated here. And we can add on the auto query, we can add the auto linking, and etc. So we've seen the portal side. Now let's see the Vista 360 side. So
okay, what was the previous flash? Was like the full dashboard and then after filtered, or?
Sorry, yes, this functionality of passing variables to Vista 360 so far works only with the Flash version.
No, I understand, but you know, when you opened the report before, there was like a graph with multiple instances, and then suddenly it was filtered. Is it what happened?
Yes. Yeah, it's what is happening. This is what I'm going to show you in Vista 360. So I'm going to take you to the original dashboard that is doing this. This is it. You see, this is the original picture that you see. So, and moreover, when I connect, okay, no, this is not what I wanted. It's because I am already, yeah, I heard this sort of share criteria that is going from one to the other. But I think we can make it work. Let me see. It is no. It's not doing it. Anyway, I'm gonna show it to you. You know what this guy is doing? It's there you go. So it is repopulating the dashboard every time with the instance ID variable router. Now, if instead of the instance ID, I use a property like site, my result is not going to be only one router. It's going to be several routers. And if on top of that, I say automatically arrange instances and links, I say update all these links. You see, it will be automatically populated. So it will first execute this query, put all the routers, then goes to the links, discover the links, assign the links, and then finally it arranges them in organic way. So you see, with only one dashboard, we can have tons of dashboards.
Don't we have security risks, Jorge, if we display, let's say, the full dashboard and then we filter it? Let's say we have slow machines or bad performance, and then it takes a couple of seconds before refreshing the filter.
Right. Yeah. This is a very important point, and not only at some point it is not our end users' fault. It's Flash technology fault. Flash technology is too much resource consuming, extremely over usage. So because of Flash, yes, very okay. Thanks a lot, Bill, and I hope to talk to you soon. And what I was saying is that sorry, I lost myself, Hassan.
No, I was talking about security risks. When you display the filter and then filter afterwards, customer may see
first of all
information.
Yeah. First of all, the share criteria is always kept. I cannot reference a Vista 360 dashboard that I don't own. So this dashboard was shared with this user, which is Vim Premium. Okay, so even if in this dashboard I have many instances that Vim Premium cannot see, he's never going to see them because the share criteria is on top of everything. So no instance that cannot pass through the share criteria will ever be displayed in Vista Portal, whether through Vista 360 dashboard or not.
Okay.
So this is one. Okay, and now let me for the last part, we've seen the easy part, right? Referencing, putting at the end one variable for the router is very easy, but it doesn't. And I have proven my point, but just partially because I haven't really built new dashboards, right? I've been new dashboard with just one router. This is nothing. So what has GeoCell team did? This is Lucas and Rahim mostly, okay? And I will forward this document comes from them, and I will forward it as it is for you guys. So you see, it's all about mobile, and there are lots of examples of what can be done. You see, instance ID in, instance name like, instance tag equal. So many possibilities to create automatic dashboards. And then what they are doing, of course, this is the same thing. We have to get the user, the Vista 360 dashboard, and then the additional parameters. Okay, and we can put more. We can use ampersand, MSC name, whatever, ampersand, another variable, whatever, and of course, because we have to share the dashboard, we have to be careful on the public visibility. This could be dangerous. Okay, because this means that everybody without authentication can see the dashboard. Then we keep on filling the stuff, and okay, this is for automatic dashboard population, but this is not the end of the dashboard variables. What else can we do? Can we use the variables for? To drill down. So if you remember, now we're switching. Okay, we are not using the drill down anymore. What we are going to be using, it's what is it? Okay, let me show it with directly with the document. So now the next step is the tools. Sorry, this is what I want to show. So let me show it here. If you remember, we also have on our model, we have also the tools. This is basically to add functionalities. For example, I don't know if you've seen this, but in Europe, because we have as the 5View expert, we managed to connect Vista 360 to SDM reports. So inside Vista 360, you can drill down to SDM report. So you can see the occupation in Vista 360 and then drill down to the content of the occupation and see what are the applications that are consuming the bandwidth. Of course, you need the SDM, you need the 5U probes, you need everything, but they are designed to work together. And this is done with the Ivy tools, okay? This, the out-of-the-box one is the one that takes you to HTTP Bing, you know, to Bing, and you query for Cisco, and then you end up with a Cisco model page and things like that. Not very useful. But if we apply the same to Vista 360, what if we use the URL? What if we use this URL to drill down to Vista 360 itself? So what these guys are doing is that, you remember Asen, in Yoigo, one of the problems we had is that every time you wanted to drill down in a dashboard from one element to another, you had to right click and click on other, and then look for the drill down dashboard and then click enter. Do you remember this, right?
Yes.
Now we can pre-cook what is going to drill down. So now we can, on our tools in here, because when we create tools, they come after this, like edit event threshold and everything. So when you're here, you will have another tool, which is what is being described in their document, search trunk routes. So it is taking you to another Vista 360 dashboard where the variable is the MC name. So I'm giving you the MSC, and then you are going to draw all the trunk routes that belongs to this MSC. The same applies to the hierarchical stuff. What about, no, the hierarchical stuff is not here. But what about if I define here, instead of the trunk routes, I define what is the below dashboard. So if I am, for example, in, and please excuse me for my lack of geographical knowledge of the US, but if I am in Florida, in a dashboard on Florida, and I see the object Florida, I want to right click on it, and when I drill down my menu, I want to go and be able to drill down to, I don't know, to Orlando or to another province or whatever, or I don't know how you call it, county or whatever, a sub-region of Florida, you see? So they were configuring automatic drill down to it. So the customer doesn't need to know what is the name of the Vista 360 dashboard that this drills down to. It is pre-configuring it with Vista 360 variables.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you have less dashboard as well, right?
Of course, of course. It depends. Sometimes you may end up having all the possible dashboards, and then you drill down to all of them. But yeah, the principle is that with automatic dashboards, you can create less dashboards with the same criteria that are populated dynamically depending on the variable that you are passing. So ideally, for customer reporting, this variable is the customer itself, or the customer and the service. So if you pass customer and service to Vista 360, and you create the proper Vista 360 dashboard, then you're going to have automatic dashboard for every customer and every service, potentially, with one single dashboard. So imagine the amount of professional services you are saving here, and all the value that you are adding to customer platform. Because imagine, today I still don't like it with the Flash, but imagine if you are able to do this, if you are able to, no, sorry. Imagine if you are able to have this with services, is that each time you click on the service, you see your services represented here. And because it's Vista 360, I can also go to the Analyze. I don't need the graph on demand because I have Vista 360.
Actually, this is exactly perfect. This is exactly why we couldn't sell Vista 360 to Bell for all these things.
So maybe now they are interested in having another meeting to reconsider.
We have to have a meeting sooner than later. So
okay.
Yeah.
The only thing, Irene, that I think that we are not ready yet, in terms of the functionality, I think yes, we are covering everything. But in terms of presentation, I still don't accept all this head. You see, all this head of Vista 360 is not properly embedded, and also the fact that it's Flash. This is unacceptable for me. So ideally, I would like to go to customers like Bell when everything is ready, flashless and everything. But I also know that the timing of the customers is not something that I can control. So whenever you think you are ready, Irene, I am happy to sit down with you or with Bell Canada or the three of us, and then and we keep on seeing this. But for me, I would like a little bit more of time so I can present the same but flashless. Now it is up to you to decide what's better.
I agree. We have to put it in there live as soon as possible.
Well,
excellent.
So there's a few nuances though, Jorge, that I've seen when we did our CD and POC, and we used a lot of this criteria passing into Vista 360. One of them is that we had to have a blank dashboard in the user's login in Vista 360. We couldn't pass it publicly, not that you would want to, but you couldn't pass it to any other user. It had to be in that user, obviously. But it caches the data. Like you can't have a complete dashboard already, because every time we would open it, the dynamic search criteria would fail if we opened it directly in Vista 360. So we had to do it from Portal for it to work. So it kind of makes Vista 360 on its own look clunky, because we have all these empty dashboards waiting for dynamic criteria to.
I see what you mean. So yeah, but oh yeah, sorry.
There's a few other ones too, and perhaps we were doing something wrong. But when we were doing auto linking from the dynamic passing of devices from Portal to Vista 360, we were only also able to use the list and topology view. The map views were not working right when we would actually do link creation from there. So I don't know if you've had good success there, but I do know.
Okay, so for the maps, I've seen some strange issues. So probably there's a bug on the auto linking, but I did manage to have it, but it didn't work. In the beginning, it didn't work as expected, and then after some troubleshooting, etc., I got it working. I acknowledge that, though, that it is something must be wrong over there, because I didn't make it work the first time right. I agree. Now, for the previous question about these empty dashboards, yeah, I agree. This is clunky, messy, whatever you name it, and you're gonna be right. My point, however, is that Vista 360 shouldn't be a separate product anymore, and this is what I'm pushing for. So because Vista 360 is going to help Vista Portal to be better, is going to add value to Vista Portal, the fact of having a Vista 360, let's say, edition mode that is not accessible, like this, having this accessible only by Vista 360 administrators with empty pages, I don't think it's bad, because end users are not supposed to get here. If we are going to embed Vista 360, they should never access Vista 360 standalone. So in my opinion, yeah, this is clunky, this is bad, but who cares in terms that the end user is not gonna be aware of this.
But that's the thing, though, is we were having issue with the SSO by trying to reference a dashboard, an empty dashboard with dynamic criteria in another user login like admin. So if we
but for this you have all the sharing. So you go and you can share with many things that are. I can share not only with users, I can share with groups of users. So if I click all, now everybody in this platform is going to be able to see this dashboard.
That's right.
So this is about administrating Vista 360, I think.
That's exactly right. It's just then the user's dashboard field is filled up with unusable dashboards. If there were a way to hide them. In my opinion, this will come by its own. At some point, there will be no Vista 360 button here, because if you are going to embed Vista 360, and also if the end user is going to be able to go to reporting and put the dashboard himself, he's never going to access Vista 360, because Vista 360 is inside Vista Portal. So if I want to open my dashboards, I see my dashboards here, so I just have to select it. Yeah, my dashboard will look strange because it's empty, but I just have to select it. I don't really enter the dashboard. You see my point? When we become flashless. So I 100% agree that there's a lot to polish, that there's still not clear, but I think that the usage of Vista 360 itself is going to drive us away from the things that we don't need anymore. Sure.
Hopefully, but please don't keep on reminding me this, because your point is absolutely right. Right now, and I think because we are in the middle of the flashless version and the new version and the old version, and I think that because of that we are starting to get all of this. But ideally, this Vista 360 interface will only be for administration, and then all of the that needs to be seen in Vista 360 will be seen through Vista Portal, and it should be adapted. And also, you've seen that the Vista Portal Flashless integrates much better. So I don't think we should have all these shared criteria problems. Now, for the shared criteria itself, the examples I've done, they work. Now, I wouldn't be surprised because of the way Vista 360 caches, etc., that there are issues. Hopefully, because we are changing the engine, this is automatically solved. But if not, please, guys, don't hesitate to open a case, to put me in CC, to try to sort of escalate or give more importance to the case, and I will follow up with support. I always do. So if there's something that I don't like from Vista 360, I'm going to follow up. That's for sure. So if, Matt, you face this again, and I am very happy to hear that you are so advanced, please let me know, because this has to be flawless. especially in the flashless incoming version.
All right, great. Yeah, then we'll sync up with you if we can schedule something with Bell Canada. And
right.
Okay, very good.
Okay. So guys, for me, this is what I prepared to show you. If you have further questions or want me to have some more fun doing some other example, or I don't know, the only thing is that I didn't prepare anything else. So I am fully available for you, only I have no new content.
No, I know we're already over your time, Jorge. I really appreciate you spending all this time for our morning, your afternoon to cover it. I think it was really helpful. The NiFi looks really good. The portal overview was great as well. So if there's any questions, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll let you run. I know it's getting late in your day.
All right. Okay, guys. So yeah, Jim. Okay, thank you. So guys, it was a real pleasure. My only regret is not being there. I think that if I would have been there, maybe we could have put our hands on. I would maybe were able to prepare something, some laptops for you to get your hands on. But in the other hand, I'm very happy to assist you anytime. You know, I've been there. I'm usually there when you want to check, so don't hesitate to ping me, call me, schedule meetings. Irene, I think that for you, for sure, when there's an incoming meeting, I will let you ping me whenever you feel like. And that's it. Really excited about this, guys. I think that Vista 360 and NiFi both have lots of possibilities. If we do it right. We will need to push on our R&D because, for example, flashless, even if it's great for many stuff, there are some other stuff that is not great at all. I am very upset. So if you have the patience and the motivation to keep opening support cases, just CC me so your case gets a little bit more visibility and hopefully proper escalation. And I am happy to correct this stuff and then to work with you as much as I can with NiFi and Vista 360. And the rest, of course, but for these two guys.
Very good. Thanks, Jorge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Take care. Have a good evening.